Chapter 319. For something like Fan Jishan impersonating another sect master and nearly destroying their foundations, it wouldn't be too much even if Spirit Heaven Palace killed her. Yet, Paisha protected her without a care. Naturally, this would incite the dissatisfaction of the masses. Most of the people who were sent by the various sects to observe the ceremony were people with actual power in their sections. Which one of them wasn't a smart person? They would always be willing to overthink things when encountering problems. Though this happened in Spirit Heaven Palace, the other sects had no choice but to ponder over the meaning behind it. They suspected if this was all planned by Ripple Sect alone. Just by sending a nascent soul cultivator and a mere lie, she almost took the position of sect master. Then, would they send someone else to take over the position of sect master in the future as well? Ripple Sect's ambition was truly huge. They were planning on unifying the various sections. In an instant, the various sects began to guard against Ripple Sect. On the surface, the various sects were still in harmony, but behind the scenes, they were constantly making small movements. There were even second- and third-rate deity sects that began to approach the other first-rate sects, faintly showing signs of joining forces to resist Ripple Sect. Though Ripple Sect was the #1 deity sect and had abundant resources, however, they were still able to deal with the resistance from the other sections. It might not be obvious in the beginning, but as time passed, the influence would only grow stronger. If it wasn't resolved, it wouldn't be long before it fell from the #1 position. Spirit Heaven Palace, magnificent jade pavilion. Mistress. Sesame stretched its head over, desperately blinking its eyes at her with a pitiful look. Zhu Yao raised her hand and gave a slap, instantly slamming his head onto the table. She looked at the person in front of her. You knew this would happen from the very beginning? Lung Yu glanced at her with disdain. I simply calculated that Paisha would definitely stand up for that trash. I never expected him to be so stupid as to take her away in front of the various sections. It's no wonder you let Ling Tian return so easily. Ripple Sect would definitely be very lively in the near future. The female lead didn't have the time to care about the matters of Spirit Heaven Palace either. However, that trash won't let Tian off so easily. Fau frowned. You hid your identity back then. Though she couldn't recognize you, she still saw you with a single glance. Furthermore, she was trying to sound you out with her words. I reckon that Tian definitely has something she needs. Zhu Yao recalled as well. The situation where Fan Jishan insisted on her becoming his disciple in front of the hall was indeed very strange. In any case, you'd better not act rashly for the next few days, Fau said in a deep voice. As for the people from Spirit Heaven Palace, I will naturally think of a way. After saying that, he did not care if Zhu Yao agreed or not. He turned around and left. Mistress. Sesame weakly called out again, with a wronged look, trying to make its presence known. Zhu Yao lowered her head to look at it, and retracted her hand that was pressing on it. Tell me, how did you get hurt? Sesame was stunned for a moment. Mistress could tell? She immediately rolled her eyes at it. With your arrogant personality, I won't be able to find you. When did he learn to walk properly? This time, it actually obediently walked out of the cave step by step. It's definitely not normal, okay? Not to mention when he saw her, he rolled around and hugged her leg even in his human form. It couldn't be because he was beaten by her, but because he was injured too badly. You can't even stand properly. Mistress. Sesame's eyes reddened. With a touched look, it crawled over from the table. It wanted to burrow into her embrace. Woo! This beastie is so pitiful. I dropped another rank. Zhu Yao once again pressed down on its face and pushed it back to its original spot. Then why are you still wasting spiritual energy to maintain your human form? Was it tired of living? Sesame's figure flashed, and it instantly turned into the size of a puppy, laying on the table. Tell me just what happened. Initially, I was desperately cultivating in spirit realm, and wanted to look for you in the higher realm. But you. Enough! Zhu Yao interrupted its words, and immediately stood up. Get to the point. How did you end up with Fan Jishan? When I was crossing realms, my inner core was damaged, and I dropped a rank. I finally managed to reach that spiritual cave from before, and wanted to borrow the dense spiritual energy there to heal my injuries. In the end, I encountered that 10th ranked demonic beast, which was that by Lee from before. Sesame said with a complaining tone. I know he's not a good beast, but he said he was willing to listen to my orders, and came to look for me several times. Then he said he wanted me to help his partner with a small favor. Back then, my injuries had yet to heal, and I didn't want them to see it, so I agreed. I never expected that Mistress would actually be here. If you just didn't want them to see it, then why didn't you change locations? It was only recuperating, so other locations were fine too. Sesame chuckled, and scratched its head a little embarrassedly. Of course I have my reasons for not leaving. As it said that, it suddenly trembled and stood up. With an sound, it opened its mouth. A ray of light flashed, and a human-sized egg suddenly appeared on the table. Sesame stroked the eggshell as though it was a treasure, and its face rippled. Mistress, isn't it beautiful? Zhu Yao was shocked, and was stunned for a moment. You can actually lay eggs. Wasn't it a male? Sesame immediately leapt up. It's not my egg. No, it's my egg. But I didn't lay it. I found the egg. You stole someone else's egg. You beast trafficker. I didn't steal it, I picked it up. I picked it up. Sesame immediately raised its paw to show its innocence. I saw it in that cave all alone there. I realized that the egg contained the aura of someone from the same race, so I picked it up. Someone from the same race? Could it be the spirit guiding beast that had yet to hatch like FAU had mentioned? She did not know Sesame's breed either. She had initially thought that it was because it came from the higher realm, but now it seemed like it was a spirit guiding beast as well. Coincidentally, it was also in that cave. That was why Fan Jishan thought that she had awakened it, and believed that Sesame was the guardian beast of Spirit Heaven Palace. Sesame carefully stroked the eggshell. There should be a beastie that looks exactly the same as me inside, and its eyes shone, and as they sparkled, a strange red color suddenly surfaced on the pitch-black beast's body. I can sense that there's a female beastie inside. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. That was why he was guarding that cave without a care for his life. Was Sesame in its estrus season now? Mistress, can I? You know what I mean. Why are you blinking at me? Your father-in-law just left. If you want to marry a spiritual beast of spirit heaven, go ahead and propose to FAU. Zhu Yao inspected Sesame for a moment, and realized that it was not as simple as just dropping a rank. Even its inner core was mostly shattered. On the surface, its body did not seem to be affected. On the surface, its body looked fine, but the spiritual energy in its body was extremely chaotic, and it was still leaking away. If it did not adjust its breathing in time, its realm would continue to drop. Most likely it would drop back to the 9th rank not too long later. That day, she used beating it as a cover to seal several of its chaotic meridians. However, she was only able to temporarily stop its spiritual energy from dropping that quickly. However, she was after all, just a foundation. How could she deal with a 10th ranked demonic beast that was equivalent to a late-stage demigod? That layer of suppression. It would be broken through very soon. Zhu Yao was a little anxious. She was truly a little depressed. In her current state, her body belonged to spirit heaven. No matter how hard she tried to raise her cultivation, it would be useless. How good would it be if she had her own body? At the very least, as long as she formed her Azoth core, she would be able to summon her sword intent to repair its meridians. However, she was completely helpless right now. Mistress, you can keep me in your divine sense. We have a contract, so my injuries can be healed immediately. Zhu Yao shook her head. My body belongs to spirit heaven. When I exchanged the usage rights with her, I could only hide in my dantian. How am I supposed to keep you in my divine sense? She didn't even have a body, let alone a divine sense. Sesame was silent for a moment. It's fine, I'll just drop a few ranks, that's all. Sesame can still repair itself. Stop pretending. It clearly minded it a lot. Don't worry. I'm your mistress. I'll think of a way. Which demonic beast's advancement wasn't incomparably difficult? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it had a slim chance of survival. Repair itself? It was easy for him to say. She did not know why Realm Spirit actually allowed her to reincarnate into Spirit Heaven's body, and did not give her a new avatar. Even if it was the same as before, a tree or a dandelion, it would be fine too. Wait a minute. Didn't she still have a godly brush? With how mystical that brush was, she could create a new one herself. With an excited look, Zhu Yao immediately reached into her bosom, only to pull out 2 short rods. She was instantly dumbfounded. The hell? She could not help but curse out. When did it break? Why wasn't she aware of it? What's this? Sesame raised its 2 claws and placed it on her hand to look at it. Why did this brush break just like that? The quality was a little too bad, wasn't it? Zhu Yao recalled. She did not do any intense exercise, right? Other than yesterday, she was startled for a moment. She suddenly recalled the time when Fan Jishan swung that bugged weapon and slashed at her in the underground prison yesterday. She seemed to have really heard a slashing sound. Could it be that she was slashing this brush back then? But she had clearly dodged that weapon, and the brush was in her bosom. Then what was it that she was slashing at? Could it be? Zhu Yao simply felt her heart ring, as an absurd thought popped out. She fiercely stood up, picked up Sesame, who was still curious, and charged out. She immediately kicked open FAU's door. FAU was startled, as he raised his head and looked at her with disdain. What are you doing here? Zhu Yao immediately reached out her hand and grabbed onto his collar. FAU, what are you trying to do? He reflexively shifted backwards and hugged his chest. The hell, I'm not your little girl Tian Tian. What can I do to you? Zhu Yao rolled her eyes at him. Get up, I have something urgent to tell you. Only then did FAU stand up and glared at her. Why are you here in the middle of the night? Even if you don't sleep, my Tian Tian still needs to rest, you know? Zhu Yao could not be bothered with his poisonous tongue. Let me ask you. You mentioned that Fan Jishan has a unique mystic energy in her body, right? Amen. Although he did not understand why she was asking this, FAU still nodded. Then how did you discover that mystic energy? FAU looked at her strangely. Why are you asking this? Don't ask for the reason yet. Zhu Yao said with a stern look. I just want to prove my guess. He frowned, and then said with an impatient look. The first time I saw that trash, she was quarreling with that idiot Chao Qi. That trash seemed to have released killing intent as they quarreled. As though he had thought of something, his brows instantly furrowed. Back then, I clearly saw her stabbing something into that idiot Chao Qi's body. However, after that, not only did I not discover what mystic artifact she was using, even that Chao Qi fellow was completely fine. It was as though nothing had happened, and they immediately healed. He turned to look at Zhu Yao and said, That's why I guessed that she should have a mystic energy that can bewitch people's hearts. Zhu Yao's face paled, and she instantly felt unwell. Hey, what's wrong? FAU asked. She chuckled with a powerless look. The move she used on Chao Qi, she used it on me as well. Ah, FAU was shocked. You can't have fallen for her as well, right? He suddenly seemed to have recalled something, and like a gust of wind, he tightly grabbed onto her hand. Then what about Tian Tian? Has Tian Tian been bewitched? Her heart is mine. The hell? If not for the fact that your cultivation level is higher than mine, do you believe that I will kick you? This old lady is a woman. Who knows if that trash doesn't discriminate between men and women? My Tian Tian is so good. He still had a doubtful look. That move of hers did not hit me. Zhu Yao flung his hand away. However, she had indeed slashed something. He frowned. What do you mean? FAU. Zhu Yao said word by word. That day, before she slashed me, she once told me that I'm a person who carries great luck. Luck? If my guess is correct, Fan Jishan is able to see everyone's luck. Zhu Yao said seriously. That unique mystic energy you sensed is the technique she used to snatch other people's luck. The term luck was vague and illusory, and it was something similar to luck value, and opportunities. Everyone's luck was different. Just like how some people were born in a wealthy family, some people lived in precarious situations. Deity practitioners required a certain amount of luck as well. Otherwise, no matter how high one's innate talent was, or how outstanding one's aptitude was. If no one guided one onto the path of deity cultivation, it would be useless. Furthermore, the cultivation world was extremely dangerous. Although spiritual treasures were everywhere, other than whether one had the ability to obtain them, one still had to see if one had the luck to find them. Hence, people with stronger luck would usually be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. And most of the people who ascended into deities were people who carried great luck. Naturally, the more luck one had, the better. In the beginning, Zhu Yao did not think about luck. In regards to Fan Jishan's luck, she simply thought that it was because she had a protagonist's halo. However, how could a protagonist's halo not be a type of luck? If luck could materialize, then clearly the protagonist's points had reached above the norm, and could even exceed the warning line. Although it was hard to believe that Fan Jishan could see luck, after thinking about it carefully, she had even come into contact with something that was even more illusory than the heavenly Tao. And Realm Spirit had even mentioned that the heavenly Tao could be modified as well. Then why couldn't something like luck be snatched? Back then, when she met the female lead in the prison, she looked as though she wanted to snatch something. Later on, she even summoned that bug-formed weapon, and with just a wave of it, the divine brush on her body broke. Now that she thought about it, back then, a portion of the luck on her body should have been severed by her, which was why her cheat was disconnected. Chapter 320. Something like luck should be the same as spirit veins. It was a part of the body, and they could sense each other. This was most likely the reason why so many men surrounded the female lead. Most likely, it was because the luck on her body had been stolen, which was why she developed feelings for her, right? The scene you saw back then was most likely Fan Jishan stealing someone else's luck. That shameless piece of trash. Fau looked as if he wanted to rush out and bite her a few times. According to what you're saying, the reason she treated Tian this way was to steal her luck as well. Zhu Yao nodded. Furthermore, the luck on Ling Tian Girlie's body must have caught her eye. Otherwise, she wouldn't have stuck herself to me even after I changed my appearance. Most likely, she didn't recognize my identity, but the luck on my body. As the patch of this world, Ling Tian Girlie's luck was unspeakable. Fau sank into silence. Initially, he thought that Fan Jishan was nothing to worry about, and the ones he had to be wary of were the men around her. But now the situation was suddenly reversed. The strongest and hardest to deal with was actually herself. If this continued, even if he eliminated all the men behind her, she could still create a new batch of them at any moment. Is there no way to counter her special ability? We can only let her steal our luck. Fau clenched his fists. I don't know either. Perhaps there is? It's impossible to guard against her evil arts. Who knows what kind of dirty tricks that trash will use, and we can't see luck either. Zhu Yao sighed. That's right, we can't see. Wait a minute. She suddenly recalled the strange light she saw when Sovereign Pai Shur appeared outside the Great Hall, and it seemed to be missing half of it. Could that be? She suddenly stood up. I think I have a way to see luck. What? Fau was startled. How? Zhu Yao did not immediately explain. She turned to look at him and said, I haven't confirmed the method yet. Before that, I need you to do me a favor. Fau frowned. What favor? Zhu Yao picked up a certain beast that had been lying on the table like a decoration. No matter what method you use, please do not hesitate to pay any price. Help me heal it. It's injured. Fau glanced at Sesame, and his eyes turned cold. He had always believed that Sesame was the guardian sacred beast of Spirit Heaven Palace. She was a little dissatisfied even though she was using the same character as Ling Tian. It's not a 10th ranked demonic beast? I'm just a nascent soul cultivator, so how could I possibly heal its injuries? Once I transmit my spiritual energy to it, I'll suffer a backlash. Aren't you a sword cultivator? You haven't comprehended sword intent yet? Zhu Yao threw him a disdainful look. How is this possible? Fau snorted coldly. When I just entered the core formation stage, I already perceived sword will, okay? Then why don't you just heal yourself with your sword intent? Sword intent can heal wounds. Why hadn't he heard of it before? Weren't those used to attack? You don't know? Zhu Yao sized him up for a moment. It's fine. I'll teach you. FAU. What's with this uncomfortable feeling? Zhu Yao roughly explained the key points and method to circulate it, and confirmed that he had completely understood it. Then, she stuffed the beastie in her hands into his embrace, and left behind a sentence that whether he could see luck would depend on whether he could heal Sesame. She then turned around and went out to research on the method to see luck. FAU lowered his head, and looked towards the beast who was said to be the key figure. Their eyes met. Big eyes against small eyes. A moment later, they spoke in unison. Teach. Teach. Both of them turned their heads away in disdain. FAU. Why the hell do I have to save a smelly beast regardless of the price? P.S. Someone else's. Sesame. Why the hell do I have to let a dead fish heal myself? P.S. Weakling. Zhu Yao returned to the entrance of the Great Hall, where Pai Shi appeared back then. However, even after standing there for a long while, nothing strange happened to her body. She thought it was a problem with the angle, so she grabbed a few passing disciples and had them stand at the same spot to test it out. She then returned to where she stood back then as well. However, no matter how she looked, that strange light from back then never appeared again. Logically speaking, that shouldn't be the case. Could it be that it wasn't luck, and was just her imagination? She then repeatedly called a few more disciples to test it out, and did not hesitate to call a nascent soul elder over. After that ridiculous succession ceremony, she was now publicly acknowledged as the sect master of Spirit Heaven Palace, and no one doubted her anymore. She did not know what method FAU used, but the main culprit, Chao Qi, was chased out of Spirit Heaven Palace as well. The other hall masters knew that they had wronged Ling Tian as well, so they treated her especially well. Although she did not know how sincere they were, naturally, no one would openly oppose her orders. That elder still did not know what was going on, but he still cooperated and stood at the designated spot. However, it was useless. She no longer saw the same light from back then. Zhu Yao was a little conflicted. If that light was truly luck, usually, those who were able to cultivate to the nascent soul realm would not possess great luck. However, compared to regular disciples, their luck was definitely not bad. Not even a nascent soul elder was present. This could only mean that her method was wrong. She recalled the situation that day. It was noon, and it was right in the middle of the day. Could it be due to the time or the weather? She had no choice but to wait for the same time, when the sun was similarly bright, and pull another disciple to that spot. As expected, there was still nothing. Was there anything else that she did not consider? She carefully pondered for a moment. That day was the succession ceremony, and the various clans and sects were present. Although most of them had entered the Great Hall, there were still quite a few people at the entrance. Could it be due to the number of people and the angle? She hurriedly grabbed a few more able-bodied men, and according to her blurry memories, she roughly arranged a spot for the disciples that was not too far off. Then she had the Azoth core disciple with the highest cultivation stand at the secluded world's position. She then returned to her original position. Still nothing? Unwilling to give up, she ordered the disciples to adjust their positions a few times. After tossing and turning for more than half a month, it was to no avail. The light she saw that day no longer appeared. Even the able-bodied disciples she grabbed were filled with dissatisfaction. Now, every disciple in the sect would make a detour around her whenever they saw her. Even that elder back then could not bear to watch it any longer. Sect Master. He called out from afar and flew over on his sword, as though he wanted to dissuade her from giving the disciples a disguised punishment that lasted for half a month. Don't move. Zhu Yao suddenly roared out. The elder was shocked. With a creak, he stopped in midair. Zhu Yao's eyes widened as she stared straight at the elder in the sky. She crazily spilled these words in her heart. The hell? What's called a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel? What's called hitting a man when he's down? Pui. Light. She once again saw that unique light. It was just a few feet above the ground when the elder flew down. She once again saw that unique aura. Compared to the one she saw on Secluded World, that light was clearly much smaller. However, it was complete. It was as though a layer of light and shadow had been added to his entire body, forming an oval-shaped halo around him. She finally found it. Zhu Yao suddenly felt like crying. She excitedly held onto the elder's hand. Elder, what's your name? Ah, the elder was stunned for a moment. I'm the elder of the Discipline Pavilion, Qi Wu. Sect Master Yu. Thank you. Thank you. I thank you on behalf of the entire world, comrade. Zhu Yao firmly held onto his hand a few times. The people will never forget your great sacrifice. You will forever be the greatest person in our hearts. I will remember you for the rest of my life. The elder looked confused. Why did he feel as though he was about to die and return to heaven? All right, everyone can disperse now. It's been hard on all of you today. Zhu Yao carefully memorized the positions of every single disciple. She waved her hands at them, and after everyone left, she once again looked at the elder. With a sincere look, she said, I really have to thank you, Elder Wuxia. Don't worry, I won't call them here again in the future. His name was Qi Wu. I still have matters to attend to, Elder Wuxia. Everyone was talking about Qi Wu. Goodbye, Elder Wuxia. Qi Wu. The final point that Zhu Yao couldn't figure out was finally solved by the elder's random interruption. She recalled that secluded world had flown over from afar as well, and in a blink of an eye, that light had disappeared. So the place where she truly saw that light was in the sky, and not the place where he was standing. She had to thank that elder. He was basically the hero who saved this world. What was his name again? Forget it. The most important thing right now was to find out the reason why she could see the light of luck, and think of a way to use this light of luck that could only be seen in this place into reality. Furthermore, she had to create a portable device. Actually, from her research in this half a month, the reason why she was able to see this light was closely related to the angle, environment, and so on. This probably involved some problems related to physics and mathematics. She had calculated all of the angles, distances, time, and so on. However, the moment she changed locations, that light could no longer be seen. It was as though it could only be seen at the entrance of the Great Hall. Zhu Yao did not believe it. There was definitely something she had not considered. Thus, she once again returned to the entrance of the Great Hall, and carefully observed her surroundings. She walked back and forth a few times, and observed the differences between the new place she had set up in this place. If there was really a difference, then it would only be the ground. She squatted down and touched these white stone slabs. They were smooth and translucent and a little dazzling. Wait a minute. Dazzling? Zhu Yao raised her head to look at the sun in the sky, and then stared at the stone slabs on the ground. This was reflection? Could it be due to the light? Zhu Yao immediately stood up and began to inspect her surroundings. She realized that the entire plaza outside the Great Hall was paved with these white stone slabs that could reflect light. She then carefully recalled everyone's positions and realized that they just happened to form a circle. Adding in the angle of the sunlight and the position she was standing at, Zhu Yao immediately circulated her spiritual energy and drew out a formation in the air. She calculated everyone's positions and added in the light. It was impossible for her to move. A formation that she had never seen before appeared before her eyes. Could this be a formation that could see luck? Chapter 321. As a 10th-ranked artificer, Zhu Yao was very confident in refining a mystic tool that could observe luck. Almost as soon as she figured out the principle, she had already thought of the prototype of the magic tool in her mind. Now, she only needed to find the materials to forge it. No, Fau rolled his eyes at her, and went back to meditating to recover his spiritual aura. What? Zhu Yao was startled for a moment before continuing. Just a palm-sized rising symbol rock will do. Why are you being so stingy? Fau still replied with 2 words. No. Fuck. Zhu Yao grew anxious. This is the only chance to find out Fan Jishan's true strength. Even if it's for your Tian, can't you cooperate a little? He lifted his head and glared at her. Do you think the rising symbol stone is a stone that you use to pad your toilet? You can have as many as you want. Her house didn't have a latrine pit, only a toilet bowl. Is rising symbol stone very rare? She remembered that when her master gave her the ring, there was a warehouse full of them. When she was learning how to refine weapons, She would often burn them for fun. The rising symbol stone originates from the edge of the regretless crossing in the depths of Horizon Forest. It is rumored that only one is born every tens of thousands of years. He looked her up and down. Do you think it's hard to find? Then let's go to Regretless Fairy to find one. FAU looked at her as if she was an idiot. Do you know what kind of place Regretless Crossing is? I have no idea. The corner of his mouth twitched, took a deep breath, and then said in a deep voice, Horizon Forest is filled with high-level beasts. I heard that it is often accompanied by all kinds of strange phenomena. Even demigod venerables do not dare to rashly enter, not to mention the deepest Regretless Crossing. Who knows what is waiting inside? No one has ever come out of it alive. Once you enter, there is no room for regret. That's why it's called Regretless Crossing. It sounded very powerful. I'm not fully prepared. Entering Horizon Forest is undoubtedly courting death. Wait. Zhu Yao turned around and left. A moment later, she once again ran back, carrying a six-winged demonic beast which was currently hugging onto an egg. Enough, I'm ready. FAU was speechless. You really intend to go? Young people, you must have the spirit of adventure. Zhu Yao patted on his shoulder. Didn't you say that the rising symbol stone was at the edge of the Regretless Crossing? We don't have to go in there. He took the materials and left. Sesame, on the other hand, was an 11th ranked demonic beast in the first place. Although it had dropped a rank, it still possessed the might of a 10th ranked demonic beast. I don't think any demonic beasts would dare to come near Horizon Forest. It seemed to make a lot of sense. Let's go, young man, Zhu Yao said with a stern look. For world peace. I'm doing this for Tian Tian. FAU turned around and rolled his eyes at her. What did world peace have to do with him? Okay. For Tian Tian. Thus, a certain someone reluctantly followed along. They flew all the way to the sky above Horizon Forest. Wait a minute. If they could be safe with a 10th ranked demonic beast, then why did they call him along? Why do I feel like I've been scammed? FAU was right. This Horizon Forest was simply a paradise for demonic beasts. How long had it been since they entered? He had already seen 3 rank 8 monster beasts, 5 rank 7 monster beasts, and more than 10 rank 5 and 6 monster beasts. Just how nutritious was this forest? So many demonic beasts liked to join in. Fortunately, he dragged Sesame along. Though Sesame was usually a little unreliable, dragging him along to act cool. Intimidating the other low-rank beasties was still pretty useful. If only it wasn't carrying an egg that was even bigger than itself with a stupid look. Mistress. Sesame suddenly scurried in front of her, and said with a joyful look. The egg moved. It moved earlier. Did you see that? It's moving too. Why did she feel as though it was the first time a husband saw a fetus move? She wasn't the one who gave birth to this egg, so what the hell was she supposed to look at it for? Sesame. Zhu Yao took a deep breath. If you don't keep this nest, do you believe that I will find some chopped green onions and fry it right now? Sesame immediately leaped a few steps back while carrying the egg. With a complaining look, he said, Mistress, you're so ruthless. No matter what, this beastie is infatuated with you. We've been through thick and thin together for several lifetimes, and I have no regrets. I will accompany you to the heavens and into the earth. You actually, treat us lonely beasts like this. Woo. 3. What happened to living and dying together, and never abandoning each other? 2. I'll keep it right now. I'll keep it immediately. Sesame's paw moved, and that gigantic white demonic egg instantly disappeared. I'll go scout ahead. With a leap, it wobbled its buttocks forward to bully the beasties that were of a lower rank than it. The days of not being able to openly see my future wife are so lonely. Only then did Zhu Yao put down her hand that was casting the incantation. When she turned her head, she bumped into FAU's strange gaze. What? This gaze was rather horrifying. He frowned, and after a while he said, Your true form can't be a demonic beast as well, right? Where did you come to that conclusion from? No wonder we look so alike. What do we look alike? Speak clearly, hey. In what way do I look alike to that idiot Sesame? FAU did not have the intention to continue explaining. With a cold snort, he walked past her and walked in front. He had an expression that said that other than his Tian, everyone else in this world was trash. He suddenly had the urge to take revenge on society. The forest was Sesame's home turf. With it opening the path, they basically did not encounter any dangers along the way. Occasionally, one or two demonic beasts with bad eyesight would jump out, but they would be sent flying with a single slap of its paw. Adding that its injuries had already recovered, the cracks on its inner core had disappeared as well. However, if it wanted to recover to the 11th rank, it would have to slowly cultivate on its own. Although FAU's mouth was venomous, he was still rather reliable. Regarding the matter of familiarizing herself with using sword intent to heal injuries, she only had to explain it to him in detail once, and he was already able to understand it thoroughly. Although he spent more time than her, using an entire month, the result was still gratifying. After entering Horizon Forest, they flew on their swords in the beginning, but as they went deeper in, they changed to walking. Using the ground shrinking art to advance, they walked just like that for 8 hours, when Sesame suddenly stopped. As though it had sensed something, it no longer acted like a carefree husky. Its entire body tensed up, as it stared fixedly at the dense forest in front of them. What's wrong? Zhu Yao and FAU stopped as well. In front, Sesame raised one of its paws and pointed to the front. I sense the pressure of 10th rank demonic beasts, and there's more than one. 2. Sesame shook its head, and even the wings on its body had straightened. A lot. A lot. Zhu Yao was startled. 10th rank demonic beasts, and a group at that. This forest sure was rich in resources. Demonic beasts had a sense of territory. Recalling the demonic beast forest she saw back then, each forest would at most have a single 10th rank demonic beast. Occasionally, she would encounter 2, and they would definitely be a couple. Sesame actually sensed a lot of them. This didn't make sense. What should she do? Zhu Yao turned to look at FAU. He frowned, and then coldly turned around, giving her a "I knew you trash can't do anything about it" expression. With a wave of his hand, he tossed a talisman to her, and then took one for himself. Patting it on his chest, he instantly disappeared before her eyes. Aura Concealment Talisman. Zhu Yao lowered her head to take a look. It was actually a high-grade Aura Concealment Talisman. She immediately patted it on her own body as well, and the disappeared FAU once again appeared in front of her. This is the only 10th rank Aura Concealment Talisman in Grand Hall Sect. As long as we don't get too close, even demigod practitioners will not be able to sense us. He coldly explained. 10th rank. Zhu Yao was a little excited. It seemed like it was pretty awesome. FAU pondered for a moment, and then added. Remember to calculate the spirit stones when we get back. The hell? So there was still a need to calculate the spirit stones. Could it not be that Ling Tian girlie's account? Tian is Tian, and you are you. As though he had thought of what she wanted to say, FAU immediately refuted. Zhu Yao wanted to ask about his family's ancestral tree. After pasting the talismans, the 2 humans and 1 beast entered the dense forest in front of them. They had only advanced a short distance when they reached out to pull the lush branches in front of them. In an instant, Zhu Yao and her little companion were dumbfounded. A small market actually appeared in front of them. It was a little similar to a practitioner's market, however. The ones coming and going were all demonic beasts. Some of them had turned into human forms, while some were still in beast forms. However, without exception, they were all 10th rank demonic beasts. This market was extremely simple and crude, and there were only a few simple sheds built using trees. Under every single shed, either a human or a beast was squatting down. Furthermore, the goods being traded were extremely simple and plain as well, to the point that there were only fruits and spiritual herbs. Furthermore, they did not have any currency that could be used between them. Basically, they were bartering. Fruits were exchanged for spiritual herbs, and spiritual herbs were exchanged for fruits. However, without exception, those spiritual fruits and spiritual herbs were all things that practitioners yearned for even in their dreams. This was basically an exhibition of the local specialties of the demonic beast forest with high quality, yet low standards. Furthermore, these demonic beasts were not like practitioners. Basically, there was no such thing as haggling over the price. Most of the time, they were extremely honest and would leave after exchanging for something. There was completely no sign of them taking more than what they wanted. It was no wonder when they did not enter earlier. They did not hear any commotion. Zhu Yao suddenly recalled the 10th-rank beastie that was extremely successful as a merchant back then, Chen Ning. It seemed like beasties had talent in business as well. What should we do? Zhu Yao sent a voice transmission to FAU next to her. There were too many 10th-rank demonic beasts here. Even if they had aura concealment talismans on them, they could not guarantee that they would not be discovered at all. Should we take a detour? Just as FAU was about to reply, he suddenly blinked for a moment. With a stern expression, he looked behind her. What's wrong? Just as she was about to turn her head, FAU suddenly pressed her down. In an instant, she was pressed onto the ground, and her mouth was filled with mud. Why are they here? He muttered with a sunken voice. Could they have followed us here? Zhu Yao, whose face was buried in the mud. What the hell? Can you let go of my head first? The hell, this lady here isn't a potato. Do I have to be planted in the mud? She continuously kicked him a few times, and only then did FAU let go of her head without any guilt in his heart. Zhu Yao wiped off the mud on her face. I'll endure it. Turning her head, she followed his line of sight. When she saw the 3 men and 1 woman in the distance, Zhu Yao simply wanted to say one sentence. The hell? He's like a ghost that refuses to go away. Chapter 322. That's me. Ling Tian girly pointed at the girl in front of her with a nostalgic smile. You and FAU? Zhu Yao continued. She nodded. Looking at the scene in front of her, a hint of infatuation surfaced in her eyes. We grew up together. That was the happiest time of my life. She pondered for a moment, and then immediately shook her head. No. I should say it was the happiest time of my entire life. Entire life? Zhu Yao was startled as she widened her eyes. She had memories of her entire life. However, anyone who reincarnated had to cross the river of forgetfulness. How could she possibly remember? She smiled, yet her eyes were calm. I can't even remember how many lives I've reincarnated. However, ever since I gained sentience, I knew that I existed for the sake of this world's stability. This is my mission and mission. I can never leave and ascend. That's why I've always purposely not wanted to be too close to others. However, I'm still human, so how can I be completely heartless? Her expression sank, as though she was about to raise the corner of her lips. However, there was not a hint of a smile on her face. She turned to look at Zhu Yao and continued softly. FAU is that accident. When I met him, he was still a child. When her words fell, the scene of a chase in front of her flashed, turning into a stormy day filled with lightning and thunder. A thin and weak child was currently facing off against a pack of wolves with a dagger in hand. His entire body was covered in blood, and bone-deep wounds could be seen all over his body. His body was shaking, yet he still held onto the dagger tightly as he glared at the pack of wolves. However, how could a child deal with a pack of hungry wolves? Very quickly, the wounds on the child's body increased, and blood flowed endlessly. The ground was then dyed by the rain. Finally, he was pushed to the ground by a wolf, and his little arms no longer had the strength to raise the dagger in his hand. Just as he was about to lose his life to the wolves, a spiritual sword suddenly descended from the sky, instantly killing the hungry wolf that was pouncing towards him. The spiritual sword released a terrifying sword aura, and the pack of wolves whimpered as they fled. Seemingly in an instant, the storm stopped, and even the dark clouds swiftly dispersed. A white-clothed woman appeared in the sky. She had a stunning appearance, yet her expression was cold, as though she would be injured if she were to approach her. Though she looked very unfamiliar, Zhu Yao felt that she was Ling Tian. As expected, Ling Tian said, "Although I know that this is unjust, I still can't bear to do it." What happened next was very easy to guess. Ling Tian girly brought the child back to Spirit Heaven Palace, and took him in as her disciple. He was personally taught by FAU. Maybe it was because of what happened to him when he was young. Children are naturally unsociable. He only relied on his master who saved him wholeheartedly. But this dependence only increased as he grew older. A subtle change had taken place. It began to turn into a romantic relationship. However, Ling Tian's lifespan was coming to an end, while Fau's aptitude was exceptional. In the future, he would definitely be able to achieve great things. After Ling Tian noticed. Naturally, he didn't want him to be delayed. Fau rejected his confession in all sorts of ways, and even deliberately suppressed him, but it was unable to extinguish the small flame in Fau's heart. In fact, in order for Ling Tian to break through to the soul formation stage, he did not hesitate to enter deep into dangerous places to search for fortuitous encounters for her. He had almost lost his life. But how could he know that my lifespan is not something that can be controlled by cultivation? A bitter smile appeared on Ling Tian's face. I must exist in this world. No matter how many fortuitous encounters there are, it's useless to me. As a deity cultivator, I will never be able to become a deity in the first place, but She took a deep breath, as though she was trying to suppress the surging emotions in the depths of her heart. A moment later, she said, I'm afraid that if he continues like this, something will definitely happen to him. So, I could only tell him about my reincarnation. I thought that after changing my appearance, as long as I refused to admit it, he would naturally understand that I'm no longer me. As time passes, it will naturally fade away. Zhu Yao frowned. He didn't believe me? That child is too smart. Ling Tian let out a bitter laugh. It was unknown if he was feeling gratified or self-deprecating. He recognized me at first glance. In fact, ever since I reincarnated, he had never mentioned a single word about what happened in the past. And in order to accompany me, he used some unknown method to damage his own nascent soul cultivation, so that he could accompany me in my cultivation. He even single-handedly established Grand Hall sect, because of my infrequent words. How can I not be moved by such deep emotions and righteousness? Zhu Yao was silent for a moment. If that's the case, then why aren't you willing to wake up? She was no longer in her body. Shouldn't it be the end? She suddenly smiled exceptionally brilliantly. Yet Zhu Yao could not help but feel her heart ache. Saintess. Because my time is up. What? What did she mean? I came for this world, and I will definitely disappear from this world as well. Zhu Yao was completely dumbfounded. But I'm here to save you. You've already saved me. Ling Tian girly was still smiling. Of course, if you hadn't possessed my body, I wouldn't have been able to retain my final strand of life. Saintess, when you came I was already dead. Zhu Yao was stunned. Then, just what had she been busy with these past few days? Before you came, for the sake of this world, I had frozen my final strand of life. But I still couldn't accept it, and wanted to see him. Ling Tian took a step forward, hugged her, and then immediately let go. Thank you. If not for you, I wouldn't have been able to see him one last time. I hope you won't blame me for acting on my own and forcefully allowing you to possess my body. But what's stolen is still stolen. This is fine as well. You're saying, the reason why you're in such a state is because I left your body. Zhu Yao was a little confused. She took a closer look at the girlie's figure. Compared to when they first met, she was definitely much fainter. Then, if I return you'll be fine, right? It's useless. She shook her head. Raising her head, she looked at the illusory sky and solemnly said, This world is already beginning to collapse. My time is up. Zhu Yao suddenly recalled the regretless crossing, and the black hole above Spirit Heaven Palace. I don't understand. Isn't the world supposed to not collapse as long as you're around? Saintess, I'm here to patch up this world in the first place, the girlie solemnly said. Using your words, I'm the patch in the first place. It's just that it's time to install it. Zhu Yao retracted her divine sense. When she regained her senses from her meditative state, Ling Tian girlie had already woken up. Fau was currently hugging her, crying like a child. His arms were hugging her tightly, as though she would disappear at the very next second. He was calling out her name over and over again. Tian Tian. You're awake. You're finally awake. Tian Tian. Tian Tian. Ling Tian still had a gentle smile on her face as she softly consoled him. As though no one else was around, she spoke all sorts of mushy words. Little you, don't worry. Aren't I fine now? Amen. Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to you in the future. Zhu Yao silently turned around and left the house. Only then did she allow the sourness in the depths of her heart to surge up. The stuffiness was a little uncomfortable, and her eyes were faintly brimming with tears. She had not known Ling Tian girly for long. Not even a month had passed. The words they spoke did not even add up to 3 digits. However, when she truly saw the word bug appear on her face after she woke up, she could not help but feel a little uncomfortable. Only then did she understand what Realm Spirit meant when he said that this world was already on the verge of collapse. So when she woke up, Ling Tian had already died. The world had long begun to collapse. Ling Tian said that she had frozen the final strand of life. She just had to wait for the right time to wake up, to awaken this strand of life, and complete her mission. In the beginning, Realm Spirit's plan was to have her reincarnate on the sacred dragon's scale. With her gold deity strength, it would be a simple matter to protect her body until the right time. Unfortunately, she just couldn't let go of FAU. That was why he allowed her to reincarnate into her body when she came to this world. Who knew that due to a freak combination of factors, she would be expelled out of her body by FAU and returned to the sacred dragon's scale. She wondered what FAU would do if he knew the truth. However, things could no longer be salvaged. Zhu Yao sighed. Suddenly, she heard a loud noise, and the entire Grand Hall sect shook. It was as though a gigantic magnetic field had suddenly appeared in the sky, and everything began to rise into the air, flying towards the sky. Mountain rocks, tiles, and various other random objects flew up one after another. It was as though a hole had suddenly been poked into the clear sky earlier, and a circular hole appeared. The objects that flew into the sky earlier had all sunk into that darkness. A gigantic suction force came over, and even the entire floating mountain was approaching that hole. It's the same phenomenon as Spirit Heaven Palace. A cry of surprise suddenly sounded from the sky. The people of the various sects had already surrounded them. Because of that black hole, Grand Hall sect's mountain barrier formation had already disappeared. FAU had already sensed it as well. He flew out on his sword and looked at the people of the various sects with a dark expression. The sudden appearance of the black hole caused the various sects to be a little flustered, but they were even more determined to capture Ling Tian. Ling Tian is a witch as expected. We must capture her. That's right. Wherever she goes, this strange phenomenon will appear. It must be her doing. Kill her. Quell the wrath of the deities of the higher realm. Kill her. Kill her. Shut up. FAU glared at the crowd with bloodshot eyes. No one is to touch her. The various sects basically did not place FAU in their eyes, as they summoned their weapons one after another. Sect Master Fa, the leader, Fan Jishan, took a step forward and said with a righteous expression, "It's not that the various sects want to make things difficult for your Grand Hall sect, but you have seen it yourself. First it was Spirit Heaven Palace, then Grand Hall sect. This is enough to prove that someone must have incurred the wrath of the heavens. Spirit Heaven Palace had been passed down since the primordial era, and the successive sect masters were all people who inherited the fate of the heavens. The term Ling Tian is close to descending to the heavens, and it is still descending to listen to the will of the heavens. That's why the sect master cannot be changed. I've said this before, you people have mistaken the wrong person. Initially, you people wanted to set things right, but sect master Fa just had to stop you. Now that you have incurred the wrath of the heavens, if you still do not rectify the situation, I'm afraid the consequences are not something sect master Fa can bear." Bullshit. FAU coldly glanced at the crowd, and then, he stared straight at Fan Jishan. "What wrath of the heavens? Who can prove it? You're clearly trying to take advantage of the situation, and you people even came up with such a lousy excuse. If Ling Tian isn't the sect master, then how could a promiscuous and shameless slut like you be? Stop joking around. How can a slut like you, who absorbs the luck of others, be worthy of being called a person who inherited the fate of the heavens? Pui. Don't dirty my eyes. Fan Jishan's expression changed. Clearly, she was frightened by his words about absorbing the luck of others. Her face instantly paled, and her face was filled with panic. How could she even think of retorting? Sovereign Paisher, who was behind her, however, frowned. He took a step forward and summoned his own weapon. Enough nonsense. Today we must get rid of that scourge. Those who stand in our way shall die. Fau did not have the intention to continue speaking nonsense with them either. Leading the disciples of Grand Hall sect, he charged over. For a moment, the sky was filled with the flashes of mystic arts. Zhu Yao, however, did not have the heart to care about their battles. Instead, she raised her head to look at the black hole that was growing larger. Compared to the one she saw in Spirit Heaven Palace, it was clearly expanding at an even faster speed. She intentionally released her divine sense, only to realize that it was not just here. A few hundred meters away, there were similar black holes as well. It was as though the number of black holes would increase every once in a while. This world was truly beginning to collapse. Ling Tian. Zhu Yao could not help but look at Ling Tian, who walked out of the house. For a moment, she did not know what to say. Ling Tian, however, smiled with a relaxed look. She raised her head to look at the black hole in the sky, and a moment later, she turned to look at Zhu Yao. I no longer have any regrets. Zhu Yao clenched her fists. Perhaps, there's another way? She shook her head. It's already enough. Next up. I'll leave it to you. Zhu Yao instantly felt her heart suffocating. However, she nodded under Ling Tian's expectant gaze. Step by step, she walked towards the plaza in front of the main hall. Her entire body began to emit out a golden radiance that grew brighter and brighter. She closed her eyes. Suddenly, a gigantic illusory figure appeared between the heaven and earth. It was Ling Tian's appearance. The radiance around her body grew brighter as well. Her entire body began to rise into the sky, and a gentle spiritual pressure instantly enveloped the entire ground. The things that were constantly being sucked into the black hole earlier suddenly stopped. As though someone had pressed a pause button, they floated in the air. Even the crowd who were fighting in full swing had stopped as well. One after another, they turned their heads to look at this strange scene. Only Fau's face paled. As though he had guessed something, he flew towards the center of the golden light. Tian, what are you trying to do? Hurry and stop. However, Ling Tian did not have any reaction, and continued to rise towards the direction of the black hole. Tian, Fau frantically tried to stop her. He used all sorts of mystic arts, but they were all useless. No matter what he did, he would be blocked by the golden light. In the beginning, he used his sword, and then he used mystic arts. In the end, he used all his strength to pound on it, and his hands were dripping with blood. Yet no matter what he did, he was unable to destroy the light. His expression changed from the initial panic, to anger, and finally to despair. Tian, hurry and stop. Didn't you promise me earlier that we'll never be separated again? Didn't you promise me that? However, Ling Tian still did not reply. How can you be so heartless? Didn't you say that in this life, you'll definitely not leave me behind? You said that. Why? Master. His eyes were crimson, and they were filled with despair and madness. However, Ling Tian's figure did not stop in the slightest. As he slowly sank into the darkness, Fau unhesitatingly flew in as well. Zhu Yao gritted her teeth. With a wave of her hand, she materialized a chain of lightning, and pulled him back the moment before he entered the black hole. What are you doing? Release me. Fau began to struggle with all his might, wanting to enter as well. Tian. Master. Chapter 323. It's an evil cultivator. It was unknown who shouted, but the disciples who had just experienced an accident and escaped from death instantly panicked again. There were even disciples who rode their swords towards the outside of the mountain, but they were blocked by the mountain guarding array, unable to enter or exit. The array formation that was previously used to block outside enemies had now become a cage to trap them. Calm down. A loud roar rang out, followed by the pressure of a nascent soul cultivator. Only then did the disciples from the various sects in the area quiet down. The one who spoke was Chuing. Right now he was also full of panic. Although there were also nascent soul cultivators, there were more than a dozen of them. Right now there were only 3 nascent soul elders left in the sect. They were not a match for them at all. The more they panicked now, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. Thus, he could only try his best to instruct the disciples to stay away from the main peak and gather on the farthest side peak. The dozen or so nascent soul cultivators just expressionlessly looked at everything happening in the sect. When the teleportation formation disappeared, the dozen or so nascent soul cultivators suddenly seemed to receive some kind of order and attacked the group. Chu Ying's face turned pale, and he immediately formed a seal to protect the disciples behind him. Originally, these 10 or so nascent soul realm experts were here for Skybound Peak. Never did they expect that they would actually launch an attack on the crowd first. The other 2 elders also came to their senses, and one after another, they moved to support the barrier. Quick, informed the sect leader and the honorable. Chuing turned around and ordered a disciple. The disciple's face was filled with panic. His hands trembled as he took out a sound-transmitting talisman. However, no matter how he tried, the runes on the talisman did not light up. Elder, the sound-transmitting talisman is useless. I can't contact the sect leader. Then let's go and chase after them. But the Great Mountain Barrier Array has already been activated. We can't get out at all. Chu Ying's face was ashen. Only now did he realize that the various sects had fallen into a trap. What a good move to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Most likely, these heretic practitioners had long set their sights on Neschazarei sect. First, he deliberately created a commotion in the remote Shell Gate sect to lure everyone there to provide support. Then, when all the deification cultivators had left, he would attack in one fell swoop. He had even cut off everyone's path of retreat. Chuing clenched her teeth in hatred. The evil cultivators were really ambitious. All the people here were elites from various sections. All the good seedlings were here. As long as these disciples were killed, the sects would not be able to continue and would inevitably decline. Furthermore, he no longer had the protection of a high-level cultivator. These disciples who were below the Golden Core realm were completely defenseless. It was no wonder that the moment these heretic practitioners appeared, they did not rush towards Skybound Peak, but straight towards the disciples. As long as these disciples were killed, it would be equivalent to destroying the entire cultivation world. He figured it all out in an instant. All the more he couldn't let them have their way. He desperately maintained the barrier to protect the people inside. As for those who didn't make it in time, there was nothing he could do. They could only watch helplessly as they were slaughtered. But even so, how could 3 nascent soul cultivators resist more than 10 people of the same cultivation level? In less than 15 minutes, above the barrier, cracks had already appeared on the barrier, but the attacks were still relentlessly raining down on it. It looked like he could not hold on any longer. Chuing spat out a mouthful of blood, and the barrier shattered. Rays of magical light shot out. With a heavy murderous aura, he flew toward the crowd. His heart was filled with despair. It was no wonder the heavens wanted his Neschazarei sect dead. Suddenly, tens of thousands of lightning bolts descended from the sky, directly piercing through the Great Mountain Barrier formation. They descended from the sky, instantly dispersing all threats, and even the Great Mountain Barrier formation shattered. Lightning bolts flashed everywhere. Lightning-type arts. He raised his head in disbelief, only to see 2 people standing in the sky. 2 people he could never even dream of. Little martial ant. Earlier, that lightning bolt that seemed to contain the might of the heavens and earth was actually released from her body. How was this possible? In the next moment, the might of a demigod surged towards the dozen or so nascent soul cultivators. Before the might landed on him, Chuing felt his heart tremble, and the shock on his face grew even heavier. A demigod sovereign. That little martial ant who had left Neschazarei sect by the crowd was actually a demigod sovereign. And this might was even stronger than the 2 sovereigns in the sect. He instantly felt as though he had been stabbed blind. Zhu Yao did not hold back against these dozen or so heretic practitioners who were clearly here to massacre his entire sect. She did not conceal her demigod might in the slightest either. Initially, she had thought that the few of them would not be able to withstand it, but a strange scene appeared. These people were actually standing perfectly fine, as though they were not affected by her might in the slightest. There were even 2 of them who were already attacking him. The hell, these people were on steroids, right? Little tyrant, back off. Go to the crowd. Zhu Yao instructed him. With a wave of her hand, she summoned a flash of light, instantly dispersing the mystic arts the 2 of them released. However, the 2 white lightning bolts did not dissipate because of this. Instead, they directly attacked the 2 heretic practitioners, binding them like chains. The powerful lightning pressure instantly rendered the 2 of them unable to retaliate. Zhu Yao grabbed onto the 2 of them. Using the same method, she once again cast an art and attacked the other heretic practitioners, binding the 2 of them once again. With the suppression of their levels, even if there were dozens of them, it was impossible for them to surpass her. In an instant, there were only about 8 or 9 people left. Just as Zhu Yao was about to continue, the few remaining people suddenly retreated, approaching Skybound Peak, which was at the very top. As expected, they were here to take advantage of the situation. Just as she was about to chase after them, Yu Yao, her master, suddenly called out. Zhu Yao's feet paused, as she instantly sensed 4 abnormal spiritual energies behind her. When she turned to look, she saw the 4 people she had captured earlier were beginning to emit out a red light, and it was growing brighter as well. It's self-destruction. Her master's voice clearly entered her ears. Zhu Yao simply wanted to say, the hell? Self-destruction. And nascent soul at that. And this was even a suicide-style terrorist attack. It was already too late to stop them now. Zhu Yao's figure flashed, and she immediately returned to the crowd, circulating all of the spiritual energy in her body. She raised up a defensive barrier, and then, she quickly cast a few mystic arts, instantly forming a formation. The moment the formation was formed, the 4 nascent souls were like 4 atomic bombs. With a loud boom, they exploded in all directions. In an instant, they were enveloped by the white light from the explosion. The entire Neschazerai sect was instantly turned into ashes. All of the flowers, grasses, and pavilions were completely turned into ashes. Even the floating peak they were standing on had instantly turned into dust under their feet. If not for the formation Zhu Yao had placed down beforehand, even if they were not affected by the self-destruction, they would have fallen to their deaths. Though Zhu Yao was a demigod, she could not withstand the simultaneous self-destruction of 4 nascent souls. Furthermore, she still had to protect these few hundred disciples. For a moment, she simply felt her mind trembling, and the spiritual energy in her body was faintly showing signs of going berserk. When she finally brought the crowd to the ground, she puked out a mouthful of blood. Granny! Grandma! Little Tyrant and Yi Qingsong shouted out in unison. Zhu Yao immediately sat down to regulate her breathing. Taking a few deep breaths, she looked into her body. She did not know if it was because of her chaos origin spiritual energy, but the spiritual energy in her meridians had actually calmed down. The lightning energy that she drew out earlier was initially in chaos, but it was immediately suppressed by those transparent spiritual energy. In less than an instant, she had already opened her eyes. Little Sure. Sovereign. Chuing took a step forward, his face was filled with guilt. He never expected that the person who saved the entire Neschazerai sect would actually be her. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he felt that it was already too late. Let's do a head count. Zhu Yao did not care about his conflicted feelings. Looking around, she realized that it was not just Neschazerai sect. Even the entire forest had been flattened by that self-destruction earlier. Raising her eyes, her surroundings were all scorched earth. As expected of a great killing weapon. If she was not here earlier, most likely, not a single person from Neschazerai sect would have survived. She could not help but suspect just what those heretic practitioners were trying to do. Logically speaking, though heretic practitioners were ruthless and unscrupulous, they still cherished their lives the most. To self-destruct without any hesitation. And even 4 of them at once, it was indeed a little strange. It seemed like it was not as simple as revenge or plundering resources. There should be a bigger goal. Hurry and look at the sky. Suddenly, a disciple shouted out in shock. The crowd raised their heads, only to see a lone floating peak floating above their heads. Skybound Peak. Chewing widened his eyes. How? How is this possible? That self-destruction earlier had even destroyed the forest within a radius of 50 kilometers, yet Skybound Peak was actually fine. There's someone up there. It's those heretic practitioners. In the surroundings of Skybound Peak, there were indeed a few people standing on their flying swords. They were the few nascent soul heretic practitioners from earlier. They stood about 15 meters apart from each other, forming a strange formation. And there was even a formation flashing between them. Hurry and look at Skybound Peak. A disciple shouted out. The entire Skybound Peak, suddenly like an illusion, shook for a moment. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared in front of the crowd, as though it had suddenly been erased from the sky. Just what in the world is? The crowd exchanged glances, as they looked at this strange scene in shock. They could not believe that such a large floating peak like Skybound Peak had disappeared in front of their eyes just like that. Even the few nascent soul heretic practitioners had disappeared without a trace as well. Even Zhu Yao could not sense their auras in the slightest. The hell, just what in the world was this formation? A teleportation formation. Her master's voice rang in the depths of her heart. Zhu Yao was startled. A teleportation formation can teleport an entire mountain? Those few heretic practitioners were stupid, right? That formation should be formed using a special energy. It doesn't seem like spiritual energy. Special energy. Zhu Yao's heart clenched, as she suddenly recalled that pervert Chung in the dimensional space. Is it like Little Eight's god race blood, a special energy? Yes, but it's not godly energy. If it wasn't godly energy, then what was it? A formation like this can't teleport very far, and the exit requires the support of a large amount of spiritual energy. Most likely, the place the mountain teleports to, the spiritual energy must be extraordinarily dense. Chapter 324. Grandma, can you tell what these evil cultivators are trying to do? The little tyrant frowned and casually asked. I keep getting the feeling that their goal isn't as simple as Skybound Peak. Yi Qingsong nodded and said, furthermore, these people seem to be very familiar with the array formation barrier. They appeared in the sect without any warning. Barrier. Zhu Yao simply felt a flash of inspiration in her mind, and she instantly recalled the matter which she could not figure out earlier. Immediately after, her heart twitched, and she gritted her teeth as she cursed. The hell? He turned around and quickly rode his sword in a certain direction. Grandma. Granny. Before the two of them could react, they had already lost sight of each other. Glancing at each other, the two of them chased after him on their swords. Zhu Yao flew extremely quickly, and the depths of her heart was in a fluster. She really wished that she could teleport. She finally remembered where the spiritual chi was. It was the Tranquil Valley, the gathering place of the gremlins where she appeared. Although the spiritual energy in the valley was sparse, the barrier outside the valley was condensed from spiritual energy. Of course, with just a touch, the spiritual energy that drilled into her body directly allowed her to build her foundation. From this, one could see how dense the spiritual chi was. Most likely, all the spiritual chi in the entire Tranquil Valley was used on that layer of barrier to protect the monsters inside. According to her master, such a large-scale teleportation formation wouldn't be able to send them far, and Tranquil Valley was the closest to Nest Chazerei sect. The more Zhu Yao thought about it, the more flustered she became. If those heretic practitioners had really teleported Skybound Peak there, then those demons in the valley, she did not think that the heretic cultivators would be so kind as to spare the natives there. Zhu Yao flew very quickly, and in the span of a few breaths, she had already arrived at Tranquil Valley. However, from afar, she could see a gigantic mountain appearing in the sky, and it was currently slowly sinking into Tranquil Valley. Her heart skipped a beat. He was so angry that he wanted to curse. His anger flared up. These evil cultivators were too fucking fucked up. He had originally thought that they had only moved Skybond Peak here. From the looks of it now, they actually wanted to sink Skybond Peak directly into Tranquil Valley, and wanted to use the advantage of the barrier within the valley to conceal the thing inside. If Skybond Peak were to fall, it would be strange if those spiritual monsters inside were not squashed into meat patties. Zhu Yao's heart clenched. As he formed hand seals, he charged into the barrier. More than a dozen lightning bolts shot towards the few nascent soul cultivators. The formation between them dissipated in an instant, scattering in all directions. Without the support of the formation, Skybond Peak fell even faster. Zhu Yao did not even have the time to curse, as she immediately flew to the bottom of the mountain. He transformed into the 1,000 Golden Summit, and did his best to support the entire mountain before he managed to slow down his descent. Grandma, Little Tyrant and Yi Qingsong rushed over as well, and they looked at Zhu Yao whose face was flushed red with shock. Go down. Disperse the spiritual monsters, and have them hide at the borders. Zhu Yao gritted her teeth and persisted. But you. Go. He could say that it was Tai Qian's order. They will go with you. It was a moment of life and death. She could only ask for more. Yi Qingsong and Little Tyrant exchanged glances. Gritting their teeth, they still listened to her and turned around to evacuate the aborigines. Zhu Yao took a deep breath and began to circulate spiritual energy around Skybond Peak. Just as he was about to use his spiritual energy to move Skybond Peak out of Tranquil Valley, he saw that the few nascent souls had returned. However, he did not immediately launch an attack, and simply remained expressionless. He coldly looked at his side. Just who are you people? What are your intentions? Zhu Yao asked with a sunken voice. However, the other party did not react in the slightest. A moment later, a person suddenly flew towards her, and the spiritual energy around him began to vibrate intensely. The hell? Another self-destruction. These people must have joined some sort of evil cult, right? Why do they like to self-destruct so much? It would be weird if they allowed you to self-destruct here. Little Eighth. Zhu Yao loudly shouted. A ray of red light instantly charged into the sky, and the cry of a phoenix resounded through the clouds. Boundless flames charged straight towards the horizon. In an instant, a purple sea of flames was formed in the sky, and anything that came into contact with the flames was instantly turned into ashes. Even the self-destructing heretic practitioner, who rushed over, had disappeared within the flames as well. The entire Skybond Peak was surrounded by purple flames. A gigantic purple fire phoenix occupied the sky before them, dancing and circling. Every time it flapped its wings, a large sea of flames would be formed. The incomparably gigantic Skybond Peak earlier was like an ice cream placed in a stove. It began to slowly melt, and at a speed visible to the naked eye, it shrunk. A moment later, Skybond Peak had shrunk to a fifth of its original size. You can do it. Well done, Little Eighth. Zhu Yao silently gave her little brother a thumbs up. When her words fell, the phoenix in the sky, as though it had suddenly extinguished, shrunk to the size of a pigeon and fell down. All of the flames instantly disappeared as well. The hell? Do you have to be so easily praised? Zhu Yao caught it. Little Eighth. How can you cut off the electricity at such a crucial moment? I'm so tired. Little Eighth climbed onto her shoulder and laid there unmoving like a dead bird. I'm so tired, I want to sleep. Seventh elder sister, you're abusing a young phoenix. The hell? You clearly didn't even finish your work, and you have the cheek to say that I'm abusing you? Zhu Yao had no choice but to summon a 9 heavenly lightning art. A lightning bolt as thick as a water bucket descended from the sky, directly striking the Skybond Peak, which had long been burnt beyond recognition. The entire mountain instantly turned into millions of tiny shattered rocks, exploding in all directions. She then immediately cast a wind-type mystic art, blowing all of the shattered rocks that had fallen into Tranquil Valley out of the barrier. Yu Yao. Her master's voice once again rang. In the next moment, the sound of something piercing through the air resounded beside her. Zhu Yao's figure flashed. Several icicles brushed past her, and in the next moment, a woman controlling a crescent moon came attacking. Zhu Yao immediately summoned her spiritual sword, and with a raise of her hand, The crescent moon was instantly split into two. The expression of the female heretic practitioner, however, did not change in the slightest, as she once again summoned her spiritual sword and attacked her. The remaining nascent soul heretic practitioners surrounded her at the same time as well. A large majority of them had materialized spiritual swords or icicles. They were densely packed together. Zhu Yao placed down a defensive barrier, blocking the attacks that filled the sky. Though these attacks were concentrated, she was not afraid of them. However, it was a little troublesome to deal with them. Adding that she had to prevent the attacks from falling into Tranquil Valley, it was inevitable that her hands and feet would be tied. Just when she was busy dealing with them, the spiritual energy around the female practitioner, who was the closest to her, suddenly began to go berserk. The hell? Just how stubborn were they towards self-destruction? They would explode whenever they had the chance. Zhu Yao grew anxious. She materialized lightning as a whip and attached it onto her spiritual sword. With a forceful fling, it directly struck onto the female practitioner's dantian, preventing her from gathering spiritual energy. With this strike, her spiritual energy instantly dispersed, and as expected, her self-destruction stopped. She was heavily injured as well, and began to puke out blood. However, she merely paused for a moment, before continuing to use other mystic arts to attack. Her expression did not even change in the slightest. This isn't right. Something is very wrong. The more she fought, the stronger the strange feeling in the depths of her heart became. These people were very problematic. Their fighting style was basically as though they did not care about their lives. However, their expressions were strangely calm, as though they were not afraid of pain. Were they villains? Weren't villains supposed to be chatterboxes? Were they supposed to say a series of lines before every fight, to threaten or show off? With their reactions, they were evidently looking down on the cold script. It was as though they were puppets that only knew how to attack. Zhu Yao's whip shattered the dantian of another heretic practitioner, who was preparing to self-destruct, and the doubts in the depths of her heart grew heavier. Just what in the world were these heretic practitioners? Those few heretic practitioners suddenly scattered in all directions. Zhu Yao thought that they were going to escape, but they actually stopped not too far away, and their distance just happened to be outside of the attack range of the lightning in her hands. In the next moment, the 8 of them began to detonate their own nascent souls at the same time. Zhu Yao's heart skipped a beat. The hell? Did they have to be so stubborn about courting death? 8 of them self-destructing at the same time. That was basically equivalent to an atomic bomb. Hey! And with this, she basically could not stop all of them in time. As long as one of them successfully self-destructed, Tranquil Valley below would be finished. She definitely could not allow them to self-destruct. However, even if she activated a barrier like before, it was impossible to protect the entire Tranquil Valley within it. What should she do? What should she do? Realm Spirit, hurry and come out to help. This world is going to be destroyed by nuclear weapons. The red glow on the 8 of them grew even brighter, and it looked as though they were about to explode. Suddenly, a green light flashed in her embrace, and a gigantic pea appeared in the air. With a sound, it opened its mouth wide. The 8 people who were still self-destructing earlier instantly turned into 8 rays of red light and entered Pea's mouth. Oh! Pea closed its mouth, turned back into the size of a basketball, and flew back into her hands. Zhu Yao. What happened earlier? Pea, why are you eating strange things again? Zhu Yao could not help but want to pry open its mouth. Putting aside the demonic beasts from the last time, it's a human this time. Even if you're hungry, you can't just eat whatever you want, hey? It's fine if you're stuffed to the point of bursting. But what about Master who's squeezed inside? Pea. The pea rolled about, and suddenly opened its mouth. Burp. It let out a loud burp. A puff of white smoke floated out from its mouth. Zhu Yao's entire body trembled for a moment. Was it a misconception? Why did she feel that the puff of smoke was humanoid? It had a head, a face, and a body, and the word soul seemed to be written on its clothes. Zhu Yao was instantly driven mad. It wasn't teleportation. Lil P really ate the man, and it could even spit out their souls. Don't develop into zombies. This is a cultivation novel, not the future, hey. Yu Yao. Her master's voice suddenly sounded from within P. Those few heretic practitioners aren't humans. What did he mean? Their bodies are filled with the aura of death. They had died a long time ago, and their souls were merely forcefully trapped within their bodies. They were turned into puppets. Puppets? Zhu Yao was startled. But they can use mystic arts, and they can even use mystic arts freely. If they were just puppets, it was impossible for them to retain the cultivation they had when they were alive. Yu Yan was silent for a moment. Naturally, they have to pay a price for using mystic arts. I've mentioned it before, the formation they used requires a special spiritual energy in order to teleport. Special spiritual energy? Zhu Yao suddenly widened her eyes. They're using souls sealed within their bodies. Chapter 325. She actually saw Fan Jishan. Although she was the female lead, she had too many scenes, right? It was her everywhere. Why didn't they give the supporting characters a chance to survive? There were 3 men following beside her, and one of them looked very familiar. He was the 10th ranked demonic beast, Bai Li, whom he saw in Spirit Heaven Palace the other day. As for the other 2, one was Chao Qi, and the other was an unknown man. That's Cheng Yufeng. Fau explained in a cold voice. He has a golden core perfection cultivation, and a mutated wind spirit root. He is known as the #1 genius in the immortal cultivation world. Zhu Yao looked at him strangely. It was clearly a compliment. Why did it sound so annoying when it came out of his mouth? What are you looking at? Fau glared at her. Those trashy sects always like to boast about themselves. What #1 genius? Didn't he spend 200 years and still can't form his nascent soul? Even that trash next to him has formed his nascent soul. He's even worse than trash. Oh, what about you? She casually asked. When did you form your nascent soul? Fau choked, his eyes flashing. He turned his head and said, let's discuss how to find the rising symbol stones. The change in topic was too obvious. There are too many demonic beasts here. I just looked around and there is only one entrance to the market. Fau pointed to the right. As long as we go around from the left, we shouldn't be discovered if we don't use our swords or spirit chi. Zhu Yao nodded. After waiting for the female lead's group of 4 to walk a little further away, she took a detour from the back and headed towards the denser forest at the side. She couldn't help but turn around to look at the 4 people, although she didn't know what the female lead was doing here. But thinking about it, it wasn't anything good. It was better not to meet her face to face. They took a big detour and finally managed to avoid the market of high-level demonic beasts. It took them 2 hours to reach their destination. But when he saw the situation at the scene, Zhu Yao, however, was instantly dumbfounded. What's that? Zhu Yao pointed at the gigantic hole in the sky and said. The azure blue sky in front of them looked as if someone had dug a hole in it. It was pitch black. Some of them seemed to have cut through the void, but there was no spirit chi in the surroundings to maintain it. Instead, it was surrounded by a deathly aura. That is the regretless crossing, Fau said. No one who enters it can survive. Zhu Yao raised her head to look a few times. For some reason, he felt a little uncomfortable. Sage Ling Tian, who had not spoken for a long time, suddenly spoke up. That place is very strange. I can tell. Zhu Yao replied. Just stay further away. Below that black hole was a stone mountain. Fau said that rising symbol stones could only be found nearby. Just when Zhu Yao rolled up her sleeves and was planning to flip the entire mountain. Found it. Fau suddenly bent down and picked up something. And threw it at her. Zhu Yao raised her hand and caught it. A rock that was as white as snow laid on her palm. It was the rising symbol stone. Holy shit, he found it so quickly. Wasn't it supposed to only give birth to 1 in 10,000 years? What are you looking at? Once we find the item, we'll leave. Fau said impatiently. I have a gold spirit root. Do you think I'm like other trash? He had to run all over the mountain just to find something. Once I spread out my spiritual energy, I'll be able to detect the entire mountain. Suddenly, he thought of something and turned to look at her from head to toe. You can't be thinking of going up the mountain to search, right? Zhu Yao. Trash. She got shot. Zhu Yao carefully kept the rising symbol stone and silently turned to leave. However, she suddenly heard footsteps coming from the front. There's someone. Fau reached out his hand, wanting to pull her. Zhu Yao immediately jumped a step away. She turned around and hid behind a rock, and then let him press her into the mud. I'm your grandson. Not long after the two of them hid, they placed down a few concealment formations, and 4 people appeared in that direction. Zhu Yao really wanted to curse out loud. Just what kind of ill-fated fate did she have with the female lead? To bump into them everywhere. Big brother Baili, what should we do? Fan Jishan and the others stopped not far away. Their faces were anxious and flustered, as though they had realized that regretless crossing was right in front of them. They did not continue forward. That 10th-ranked demonic beast called Baili frowned. He looked around and consoled. Don't be afraid, I'm here. At most, we'll just return the item. No, Fan Jishan immediately refuted. Seeing the gazes of the other 3, her expression changed, and she immediately explained. What I'm saying is, Big brother Baili, you spent so much effort in order to borrow me to retrieve this item. If we were to return it just like that, wouldn't we be letting down your good intentions? Furthermore, she turned to look at the other 2, and in an instant, tears welled up in her eyes. Big brother Yufeng was even injured because of this. How can I? It's all my fault. I'm the one who harmed you all. Jishan. That Azoth Kor said with a gentle look. It's not like you were the one who injured me. I can only blame myself for being inferior. Why do you have to blame yourself? That's right. Chao Chi persuaded as well. You're just too kind. This has nothing to do with you in the first place. And we're the ones who willingly accompanied you into this dangerous place. How can we blame you? Baili nodded as well. Reaching out his hand to hug her waist, he consoled with a gentle voice. Jishan, don't worry. This is a land of death. Even if it's a 10th rank, they won't dare to casually approach this place. As long as we hide here for a day, they will naturally give up when they can't find us. Really? The female lead asked with an innocent look. Baili nodded with all his might. Now you can be at ease, right? Chao Chi tapped on her nose. I already told you not to worry. Fan Jishan's face instantly blushed, revealing a shy look. Big brother Baili, big brother Chao, big brother Yufeng. Silly little sister. Zhu Yao's face darkened as she heard this. Looking at this situation, these 4 people must have taken something from someone else, and were being chased by someone else, which was why they fled here to hide. And that thing was most likely very special. The female lead basically didn't want to hand it over. They stole something, and yet they stole it so confidently. They could be considered weird. Zhu Yao could not help but want to help them pick up their worldview. When she turned around, she saw Fau's constipated expression at the side. What's wrong? Zhu Yao sent a voice transmission over, but he did not reply. Zhu Yao could only follow his gaze and look over. And then she was dumbfounded as well. The hell, these 4 people. Why did they start to play a pornographic scene while they were talking? In just a few seconds, half of their clothes had already been taken off. Hey, corrupting public morals. Fau coldly snorted. He then turned around and began to meditate. She was the female lead of a meat novel, after all, so it was understandable that she had to farm meat. Amen. It's just a little heavy. This was a 4P we're talking about. Even Japanese action movies rarely had such heavy tastes, right? Let alone a live version. Amen. Just thinking about it made her a little excited. Aren't you afraid of going blind? Fau glared at her. Once unfamiliar, twice familiar. I've even watched the original action movie with your wife before. In any case, it's not my eyes. Ling Tian girlies. He had a what the hell look on his face. Live version, you're really not going to watch it? Didn't all guys like this? His face instantly darkened. I'm not. I'll have Ling Tian girly come up. You 2 little lovebirds watch it together. Fau fiercely glared at her. If you dare to bring bad guys to my house, Tian Tian, I'll destroy you. She seemed to have been led astray once. Forget it, I'll watch it myself. Yo, you're naked. Fau immediately closed his eyes. Two people at the start, what heavy tastes. Fau covered his ears. Yaya, it's a 4P. He puked. Why did he turn back into his beast form? There's even a human beast. The hell? Sesame puked as well. In the beginning, Zhu Yao watched for a while with the attitude of revisiting the plot. When the live broadcast had gone on for 3 hours, and even the sky had darkened, the 4 people, no, it should be 3 humans and 1 beast, were still in high spirits, working hard. Zhu Yao expressed that she was having a hard time appreciating it as well. Yet she could still hear the female lead's pig-like voice. If this voice were to be used in the modern era, she would definitely become famous. When that time comes, whatever teacher song would be so weak, alright? I guarantee that every otaku will have one, and carefully treasure it. Wait a minute. Zhu Yao lowered her head to look at the rising symbol stone in her hands, and suddenly had an evil thought. Hey, Tiantian's childhood friend. Zhu Yao nudged Fau, and said with a mysterious look, let me borrow something from you. The action movie had been broadcasted for an entire night, and Zhu Yao seriously had a hard time appreciating it. After watching the latter half of the movie, she no longer had any interest in watching it. Since she had nothing to do, while the few of them were concentrating on sewing, she set down a few spiritual energy concealment formations, circulated the fire spiritual energy in her body, and immediately began to refine her artifact. The rising symbol stone was a rare material, but its grade was not high. Its only benefit was that it could be used as plastic. Mystic artifacts ranging from 3rd rank to 8th rank could all be refined using this material. As for how many grades one could refine, that would depend on the skill of the engineer. The artifact that Zhu Yao wanted to refine, however, did not care about grade. In any case, its main purpose was not to be used in battle. The reason why she wanted to use the rising symbol stone was because it had the best reflective properties out of all the materials. Zhu Yao immediately followed the positions of the stone slabs in the Great Hall, and the way they were formed. Using the rising symbol stone in her hands, she forged an identical one. In the end, she created a cylindrical telescope. Ugh. Even Zhu Yao herself did not expect that the artifact would look like this after being refined. And it was even a single cylinder that could be folded and shrunk. Alright, it's more classical. The only difference was that the telescope only had 2 lenses, while she had dozens of rising symbol stones with different angles and positions inside. However, when she was carving the formation, she hesitated again. If she were to directly carve this formation inside, then no matter who it was, they would be able to see luck through it. In essence, wouldn't it be no different from the female lead? After pondering for a moment, she still did not directly carve the formation that she had calculated earlier into it. Instead, she directly inserted a strand of spiritual energy into it, and through the rising symbol stone, she slowly corrected the circulation method of the spiritual energy, outlining the formation. Chapter 326. The first thing he saw was a sea of purple and red. All 4 of them had that special light around them, but the color was slightly different. The demonic beast by Li had a light green color, Kuchi had a light yellow color, and Chen Yufeng had a light blue color. The most exciting part was the female lead. She had all kinds of colors on her body. It was as if she was wearing a cotton jacket that was full of patches. Unlike the complete circle she saw on the elder's body, her entire body was filled with all kinds of uneven light. Zhu Yao carefully counted for a moment, and realized that the rays of light were simply too complicated. And she was basically unable to count them all. The other 3 added up couldn't compare to her brilliance. Moreover, the light of the other 3 seemed to be somewhat incomplete, as if it was blocked by something. Especially Cheng Yufeng's, there was only a small corner left, as if it could be extinguished at any time. Zhu Yao frowned. If she had any doubts about her conjecture earlier, then the current situation of the female lead had completely confirmed her conjecture. What's that? Fau woke up from his meditation, and stared at the binoculars in her hands. This can't be the artifact you forged, right? That's right. Zhu Yao shook the binoculars in her hands. Fau's face immediately darkened. You dragged me all the way here to look for materials, just to refine a lousy toy that can't even be considered a first-tier magic tool? Seeing that he was about to explode, Zhu Yao sighed. Young man, don't be so impatient. You can't judge a weapon by its cover. Who cares if it's at the 7th, 8th, or 9th level? It's fine as long as it's useful. That's not even level 1. Fau said with a look of disdain. Zhu Yao immediately placed the mystic artifact in front of his eyes. He suspiciously glanced at it, and was instantly startled. This is luck? She nodded. Fau's expression grew darker and darker. So she really can steal the luck of others. Could it be that this guy didn't believe it all along? What happened to being in the same boat? Zhu Yao was a little disappointed. Fau did not speak again, but his expression was even colder than before, as if he was thinking of countermeasures. Zhu Yao continued to observe Fan Zhishan through the binoculars. As long as she could see the luck, she believed that there would definitely be a way to prevent the luck from being stolen. Then, what's that? The female protagonist was surrounded by 3 thin lines of different colors. If one didn't look closely, they wouldn't have noticed it. And the source of those 3 thin lines was actually the 3 male leads. It was as if several transmission tubes were connected between the 4 of them. Was the female lead trying to steal his luck? Upon closer inspection, it was not obvious. However, the radiance on the 3 of them had indeed dimmed. Moreover, those thin lines were getting bigger and bigger. Just now they were so thin that they couldn't be seen, but now, they were as thick as a finger. Correspondingly, the radiance on the 3 men's bodies was rapidly fading away. In less than a moment, a fifth of the light had disappeared. Especially Cheng Yufeng. His pale blue light was instantly extinguished. The female lead suddenly let out a special moan. Her tone was sharp, and it was especially obvious as they gasped for breath. It was just that the few people who were immersed in their lust didn't notice. Instead, he cooperated and panted a few times, ending this intense exercise that lasted a day and a night. At the same time, the 3 lines that looked like transmission tubes also disappeared into thin air. The faint green, faint blue, and faint yellow light on the female lead's body increased by quite a bit. Especially the light blue color, which took up almost half of the female lead's various colors. Zhu Yao simply felt a ding in her mind. She suddenly understood why this was a lust novel. The female lead was actually using the method of yin and yang exchange to steal other people's luck. It was no wonder she was surrounded by so many male leads. Wait a minute. This shouldn't be the only method. Back then, didn't she take out a bug-like weapon and slash her? Could it be that there was a difference between men and women when it came to snatching luck? Or could it be that the female lead had other considerations? Zhu Yao was a little confused, while the passionate men and women had already begun to put on their clothes, preparing to leave. Zhu Yao could not help but look at Cheng Yufeng. She didn't know if it was because he had completely lost his luck, but she actually discovered a hint of death aura between his brows. Just when she was about to take a closer look, Fau suddenly reached out his hand, and with a slap, pressed her into the mud again. The hell? What happened to the promised team love? They're about to leave. Fau solemnly transmitted his voice. Only when the sound of footsteps gradually faded away did he loosen his grip. Zhu Yao, whose face was once again covered in mud. That this girl was definitely doing it on purpose. Fau dispelled the surrounding formations and walked out. Zhu Yao stood up and followed after him. The high-grade aura concealment talisman on her instantly lost its effects as well, turning into ashes. The timing was just right. Let's go back. After eating 2 mouthfuls of mud on this trip, Zhu Yao expressed that her heart was very tired. Wait a minute. Fau coldly glanced at her. Are you sure you don't want to bring a few more rising symbol stones back, just in case? Didn't you say that one would only appear every 10,000 years? Zhu Yao glanced at him. Could there be a second one? One every 10,000 years. I didn't say there's only one either. This place has existed for who knows how many millions of years. Fau gave her an idiotic look. What should she do if she wanted to kill her teammate? He pointed to the high ground behind her. There's one above your head? Zhu Yao raised her head to take a look. As expected, There was a rising symbol stone that was 4 to 5 times bigger than the one before. She thought that it was better to be prepared. She couldn't guarantee that FAU would accompany her again in a good mood. Hence, without any hesitation, she turned around and walked towards the stone mountain. Just as she took 2 steps, her feet suddenly felt heavy. A gigantic suction force came from below, and she lost her balance and fell onto the ground. She was unable to move. The surrounding formations shone brightly. Her heart clenched, as she suddenly recalled Fan Jishan who had just left. Could she have been discovered? She turned around and shouted a warning. "There's a formation, hurry." Before she could even finish her words, she saw FAU's indifferent expression. His face no longer had that expression of the entire world is trash, and his entire being had turned even darker. Zhu Yao was startled for a moment. "You were the one who set up this formation?" FAU did not reply, and simply walked towards her with a dark expression. Roar! Sesame sensed danger as well. With a loud roar, it was about to return to its original size. FAU, however, simply snorted with a cold expression. With a wave of his hand, he cast an art. Something flashed on Sesame's forehead, and it instantly fell onto the ground. No matter how it struggled, it could not move a single step. Its entire body was suddenly ignited with flames, covering its entire body. Sesame. Zhu Yao was shocked. She looked towards FAU who had suddenly turned into a different person. "What did you do to it?" "It's too hard to deal with. I merely added a few small formations on its inner core." He replied with an unconcerned look, and his voice was so cold that it could send chills down one's spine. Inner core? Could it be when he was recuperating? Zhu Yao's heart sank. "Just what are you trying to do?" FAU, however, did not reply. Instead, he walked straight towards her. His hands formed an art, and one after another, mystic seals flew out from his hands, coiling around her. These mystic seals were soul-expelling arts. "You're trying to expel me from Ling Tian's body." Zhu Yao widened her eyes. "It's been so many days, you've stayed long enough," FAU solemnly said. "How can I allow you to continue staying in her body?" "FAU, I'm not." "Shut up." FAU's ice-cold eyes stared straight at her, as though he wanted to swallow her whole. "You know about luck, and you're even able to create a heaven-defying mystic artifact that can observe luck. You must have been a mighty figure in the past as well. With your abilities, did you really possess her body just to save her? In this world, how can there be evil spirits that do not wish to possess a human's body?" "Those words of yours can only deceive Tian Tian. When the time comes, will you let go of the opportunity to possess her?" The more he spoke, the darker his expression became. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness, as though he had suddenly turned into another person. "No, that's not right. This is his true nature. The him these few days was merely an act." "You've never believed me from the very beginning?" As expected of the best actor, she actually did not notice the slightest abnormality, and wholeheartedly helped Ling Tian girly deal with the female lead. She never expected that while he was pretending to cooperate, he was actually plotting on how to expel her. Ling Tian girly's explanation was clearly not on point. "Hey. In this world, I only believe in myself." FAU flipped his hand, and the mystic seals around her began to circulate even faster. She felt a force desperately pulling her out of her body. FAU. She suddenly felt a little flustered in the depths of her heart. Just who did she offend? "Have you ever thought about what would happen to Ling Tian if I were to leave?" His expression turned even colder. "She's naturally under my protection." His expression turned even colder. "She's naturally under my protection. Are you certain you can protect her?" Zhu Yao coldly laughed. If he could really stop the female lead, then there was no need for her to come to this world. Back then, when she came here, Ling Tian girly was trapped to death in Spirit Heaven Palace. A hint of hesitation flashed past FAU's face. Just as Zhu Yao was about to explain a little more, a series of beast roars suddenly resounded from afar. The roars rose and fell one after another, and immediately after, the ground began to shake. Even FAU was a little unsteady on his feet. Fan Jishan, Chao Qi, and the demonic beast Bai Li had returned, flying out of the forest. When she saw Zhu Yao and FAU in front of her, She was clearly startled. "It's you guys." Her expression changed, and a hint of killing intent flashed past her eyes. In the next moment, figures flashed past one after another. In an instant, a large group of densely packed demonic beasts appeared, surrounding Fan Jishan, Zhu Yao, and the others. Within the group of beasts, there were humanoid figures dressed in different clothes, as well as various beasts. Without a single exception, they were all 9th or 10th ranked demonic beasts. Furthermore, every single one of them had furious looks on their faces. Pairs of scarlet eyes stared straight at the few people in front of them, and deep roars filled with immense rage could be heard endlessly. A black-robed man walked out from the group of beasts. He swung his hand. With a smack, a bloody object fell in front of them. When she clearly saw what it was, even Zhu Yao sucked in a deep breath. That was actually a person. A person who was bitten into a mess. He was one of the male leads who was playing the restricted game with the female lead earlier, Cheng Yufeng. He's dead. Zhu Yao instantly felt her stomach churning. Fan Jishan's expression instantly turned as pale as snow. She took a step back in a fluster, and hurriedly turned her eyes away, as though she did not dare to look at the object on the ground. Chao Qi and Bai Li's expressions carried a little panic as well. That black-robed man first glared at Bai Li with a fiendish expression, before turning his head and spitting on the ground. "Pui! Traitor! Hand over the sacred dragon scale." Chapter 327. As soon as the man in black finished speaking, all the demonic beasts roared in unison. As a foundation trash, Zhu Yao simply felt her dantian trembling, and she could faintly hear the sound of it shattering. However, Fau did not stop the array formation. He only paused for a moment before continuing. Bai Li clenched his fists and was at a loss of what to do. However, the demonic beasts around them began to press closer and closer. Some of them could no longer hold themselves back and pounced towards them, looking as if they were going to tear them into pieces. Fan Jishan's expression was already deathly pale. Carrying Bai Li, she dodged the attacks of a few demonic beasts. Suddenly her eyes turned. Gritting her teeth, she threw something in Zhu Yao's direction. "If you want the sacred dragon scale, ask her for it." In an instant, all of the attacking demonic beasts stopped in their tracks. They turned around and turned their spears around, charging towards Zhu Yao and Fau's direction. Fan Jishan, however, fled in the opposite direction on her flying sword. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. The female lead was trying to get someone else to do her dirty work. Ha! Fau. Zhu Yao wanted him to stop this binding formation. Now was not the time for internal strife. However, he suddenly took out a magical talisman, a top-grade locating talisman. Zhu Yao widened her eyes. So he had long made up his mind. After placing down a location talisman, he planned on directly teleporting back to Spirit Heaven Palace. He activated the talisman, and with a flash of white light, the location talisman was activated. Just as he was about to be teleported away, however, he suddenly increased the speed of his hand seals, and his palm struck onto the position of Zhu Yao's chest. Zhu Yao simply felt her consciousness being instantly pulled out of her body. His body became as light as smoke, and his 5 senses disappeared. The formation beneath his feet also disappeared in an instant, along with Fau and Ling Tian. In an instant, only Zhu Yao, who was in soul form, and Sesame, who had just been released from his control, were left. There was also a large group of high-ranked demonic beasts that were charging at them furiously. This was the first time in Zhu Yao's life that she understood the meaning of burning the bridge after crossing it. Biting the hand that feeds him. It wasn't easy for her to come all the way to this world. It was fine if she didn't even have an identity, but the key was that she had wholeheartedly saved a person. In the end, the other party even suspected that she had ulterior motives and dug a big hole for her to jump into. A ball of fire burned in her heart, making her irascible and want to beat someone up. Suddenly, she had a kind of, "Who do you love? I don't want to care anymore." He raised his head and looked at the ferocious monsters in the sky. The roaring demonic beast horde. Zhu Yao simply felt as though she had nowhere to vent the grievances in her heart. as waves of fury burned her to the point where she wanted to bite someone. For a moment, he couldn't care less about bugs or demonic beasts anymore. He turned around and roared at the beasts as if venting his anger. "Shut up." A wave of energy seemed to spread out in the air. Almost at the same time, the enraged horde of demonic beasts. It was as if someone had pressed the pause button, and with a click, they were stuck. There were even those who couldn't stop in time in the air, and fell to the ground like dumplings. The group of beasts whose eyes were burning red seemed to have been collectively splashed with a bucket of cold water. Dumbfounded, he looked at Zhu Yao, whose feet were not touching the ground, and was floating in the air. A while later, all the beasts couldn't help but let out the same syllable. "Meow. Meow your sister, meow. Can't you see that this daddy is angry?" Zhu Yao panted a few times. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. "Let me have some peace." Instantly, the entire herd of beasts was in a bad mood. Beast 1, who is that? He seemed to really like it. Beast 2, I suddenly feel like rubbing against her. What should I do? Beast 3, but she doesn't seem to like us. Beast 4, oh, I'm so sad. I feel like crying. Beast 5, the hell is a sacred dragon scale? For a moment, none of the beasts dared to make a sound. The entire place was strangely silent. Dozens of pitiful eyes stared fixedly at Zhu Yao, who was currently floating around angrily. Each and every one of them had a look of adoration and infatuation. Amen. She might come over and like us after she's not angry anymore. Sesame, who had rich experience in hugging someone's thighs, was the first to react. Under the envious and jealous gazes of the beasts, it eagerly ran over. "Mistress, it's been a long time since I've seen your domineering side." "Domineering my ass. She's basically logging off, alright?" Zhu Yao glared at it. After floating back and forth a few dozen times, she finally calmed down. When she turned to look, the group of beasts that were obediently squatting on the ground were shocked. This was, the friendship between the beasts had returned? After pondering for a moment, the current her was just a ghost, and she wasn't possessing anyone else's body. Could it be that the world-favorable impression ability was only useful when she was in her complete form? That's great news. My ass. Right now the sky was slightly bright, which was why she could float here. Once the sun rose, she would definitely return to the underworld. How was she going to fix the bug if she returned? Her thoughts changed, and she once again thought of FAU. She instantly lost all motivation. Why would she still care about him? If she wanted to return to the underworld, then so be it. This lady here isn't going to serve him anymore. Turning to look at the cautious demonic beasts, she finally could not help but ask, "Just what's going on? Why are you guys chasing after Fanjishan? It's that female practitioner earlier." When her words fell, the crowd instantly raised their claws and hands, fighting to be the first to answer the question. Zhu Yao's expression darkened, as she pointed to the black-robed man at the very front. "Speak." "Mistress, it's like this." The black-robed man cleared his throat. Ignoring Sesame's warning gaze, he took a step forward and said, "Earlier, those human practitioners who came out of nowhere stole our beast race's most valuable treasure, the sacred dragon scale. After they were discovered by us, in order to retrieve it, we chased after them relentlessly. Furthermore, one of them is a beast race trader, and he's very familiar with the terrain here. That's why we only found him after searching for 2 days." Sacred dragon scale? Zhu Yao turned around to look for the item Fan Jishan threw at her earlier. She saw a scale that was shining with a golden luster stuck in the crevice of the stone on the ground. It even carried a little unique aura, and it was actually godly energy. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. It can't be the dragon scale of a dragon, right? That's right. A dragon dropped a scale. Is it worth it for you beasties to snatch it back? As expected, demonic beasts were diehard fans of the god race. The man's eyes shone as he looked at her, and said with an excited look, "The sacred dragon scale is formed from a scale on a dragon's body. Legend has it that it's the most important scale that protects one's heart. Condensing a peerless godly energy, it's the most important sacred object in the hearts of all beasts in the world. If it's important, then go and pick it up. Why do you keep staring at me? That scale has fallen for so long. Yet I don't see any of you beasties picking it up. It's already stuck there. Zhu Yao sighed. She turned around and floated towards the dragon's scale that was stuck in the crevice of the stone, and habitually reached out her hand to pick it up. Since it's so important, then keep it well in the future. Don't. Before she could even finish, the moment she touched that dragon's scale, a dazzling light appeared in front of her eyes. A huge suction force came, and her entire body was sucked into it. In an instant it was pitch black. Below her line of sight, a familiar loading bar hung there. However, the loading bar did not start from the beginning. Instead, it had already reached the end. The number of 99% flashed, and instantly turned into 100%. Ting. A familiar notification sound instantly resounded in her ears, and a row of words suddenly appeared as well. Loading of missing soul complete. Avatar activation complete. Brave young lady, hurry and create a miracle. And then she turned into a piece of scale. Zhu Yao was stunned for an entire 30 seconds, before she regained her senses. This is an avatar? Why the hell is it a scale? Ah. And what's with that 99% to 100% loading bar? This was clearly the same loading bar that resurrected into Ling Tiangirli's body when she first came to this world, right? Why didn't she finish it back then? Why did the loading bar get stuck, hey? Then in the past few days, had she been wearing the wrong avatar? So she was supposed to resurrect here. And this dragon scale was the real one prepared for her? Zhu Yao, who knew the truth, simply wanted to raise her middle finger. Did Realm Spirit's intelligence go offline? Even if she had her own avatar, she was a piece of dragon scale. How was she supposed to fix the bug? Was she supposed to kill the female lead with a flash of light? It was stuck in the crevice, and it couldn't move at all, alright? Just as she was thinking. Suddenly, a powerful energy surged into her body, and it was continuously gathering at the center of the scale. It was as though a power that had been hidden for a long time had suddenly been activated. This was godly energy. Zhu Yao calmed her heart, and immediately circulated that godly energy. Two tiny hand-like rays of light materialized on the two sides of the scale. Holding onto the two sides of the crevice, she forcefully pulled. With a plop, she pulled herself out of the crevice. Good thing it didn't break. The beasties who were spectating the entire time, they seemed to have seen something incredible. Mistress. Sesame was dumbfounded as well, completely unable to understand what was going on. In the blink of an eye, Zhu Yao turned into a piece of scale, and she even pulled herself out of the crevice. However, Zhu Yao did not have the time to respond to it, because the godly energy in her body was increasing. Every single inch of the scale seemed to have been sealed with sufficient energy, and the moment Zhu Yao entered, she could not help but spill out. In the beginning, she was still able to guide the godly energy to gather at the center, but slowly, she realized that it was basically unable to catch up to the godly energy's speed. She might as well directly transform. In any case, she had so much godly energy. The light from the scale grew even brighter, and in an instant, the entire area within a radius of several tens of meters was shining with a golden light. At the center of the golden light, a human figure was slowly being condensed. First it was the body, and then the four limbs. 15 minutes later, a young woman with a delicate and pretty face appeared at the bottom of the stone mountain. And the golden light in the surroundings slowly faded as well. Transformation complete. Zhu Yao subconsciously lowered her head to take a look. It was a flat plane. As expected, it was her avatar. Mistress. Sesame pounced over with an excited look, its two front paws tightly hugged onto her thigh. Your new appearance is so beautiful. Sesame wants to give birth to a monkey for you. Zhu Yao rolled her eyes at it. Where's your egg? It stiffened for a moment, and then said with a shameless look. Mistress, if you like eggs, I can lay them as well. Who wants your egg? The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. She could not be bothered with this beastie, who often went out without any morals. Raising her head, she looked at the other demonic beasts. Everyone. Beasties, I wish to find a place to rest for a moment. I wonder if any of you can lend me your cave residence to stay in? Although she had already transformed, The godly energy in her body was still very chaotic, and it even had the tendency to wander about willfully. She had to immediately meditate and adjust her breathing. Mistress, my house can do it. A beastie immediately responded. TCH, how can your little place do it? Mistress, come to my place. My house is spacious enough. Another one refuted. How can your cold and broken place be as good as mine? Mistress, my house is the most comfortable. Come to my place. Your cave is filled with grass, it's so dirty. Mistress, my house is the prettiest. Come to my place. Stop fighting, no one is as good as my house. Mistress, come take a look at my house. It's just finding a place to meditate. Is there a need to fight so much? Also, when did she become the mistress of this group of beasties? The beasties, who were still united against outsiders earlier, were beginning to grit their teeth and quarrel over a spot to stay in, looking as though they were about to come to blows at any moment. Zhu Yao had no choice but to choose the cave residence of a 10th-ranked demonic beast with a darkened expression. The reason was very simple. Its house was the closest. After greeting the other beasties, Zhu Yao brought Sesame and followed that 10th-ranked beast back to the cave residence, and officially moved in. The 10th-ranked demonic beast that had the honor of being chosen had its entire body rippling, and it was even floating as it walked. With its head raised high, it walked past the crowd of beasts with an air of arrogance. That little looked as though it had struck the jackpot, and it received several envious gazes along the way. When it reached the cave entrance, it suddenly said to its fingers with a shy look, Mistress, actually, I can lay eggs as well. Zhu Yao. Sesame. Zhu Yao meditated for an entire half a month before she managed to straighten out the godly energy in her body. Compared to a real dragon, the godly energy in her body was considered little. However, she was merely a piece of scale right now. Her power was still fine when it was sealed back then, but now that it was activated, it was basically unbearable. Yet she could not cultivate using the methods of the god race. After pondering for a moment, she directly used the godly energy as spiritual energy, and guided the godly energy into her dantian according to the methods of human practitioners. However, she did not expect that her cultivation level would begin to rise at an extremely fast pace, and her body did not need to be congealed like when she was a human. She directly took that step, and her cultivation level rose without any obstructions. After she completely straightened out her godly energy, she realized that her cultivation level had directly broken through the demigod realm, and had reached the boundary of a gold deity. Her first reaction was to raise her head towards the sky, but she realized that nothing had happened. This was illogical. Didn't they say that those above the demigod realm had to ascend? She had already skipped levels to become a gold deity, and she did not intentionally conceal her cultivation level either. Forget about the light of guidance. There wasn't even a single lightning shadow in the sky. For some reason, she had an indescribably strange feeling. She faintly felt that this was not a good sign. She subconsciously released her divine sense, and in an instant, everything in the entire horizon forest appeared before her eyes. Even the huge hole in Regretless Crossing could be seen clearly. However, when she wanted to enter the hole again, she could not sense anything at all. For some reason, she began to be a little concerned about that hole. Mistress, what's wrong? Sesame raised his head to look at the sky as well. Zhu Yao frowned. Tossing away that strange feeling, she turned to look at Sesame. Sit down. I will help you repair your inner core. Since FAU dared to set down a formation on its inner core, there was no guarantee that he would not do anything else. She had to take a look before she could be at ease. Oh. Sesame immediately returned to its human form, and sat in front of her. Just as it was about to close its eyes, it suddenly seemed to have recalled something. Mistress, actually, when I came out of spiritual realm back then, it was you. If you don't want to go berserk, then focus. Chapter 328. Only after Zhu Yao summoned her sword intent did she realize that Sesame's inner core had not been restored at all. FAU had merely placed an illusion on Sesame's inner core, and in reality, it did not have much of an effect. Adding that the formation was able to block Sesame's 5 senses, it had already recovered. The moment she probed it with her divine sense, that formation was destroyed by itself. When she saw its scattered inner core, Zhu Yao instantly felt the urge to kill someone. Fau's chess move was huge, yet she did not realize it at all. If not for her current avatar coming online, and her cultivation breaking through to the demigod level, there was basically no one in this world who could cure Sesame. Zhu Yao spent exactly 3 months sewing and patching before she managed to restore Sesame's inner core. She barely managed to stabilize its cultivation at the 10th rank before she walked out of the cave residence she was staying in. Fortunately, it did not drop another rank. Initially, she wanted to thank the landlord beastie, only to see it running over in a fluster. Mistress, mistress. It ran in a hurry, and for a moment, it had forgotten to transform back into its beast form, as it sprinted over on all fours. Mistress, something bad has happened. What's wrong? Zhu Yao asked. The landlord beastie pointed in a distant direction. That hole in the east suddenly became so huge, and it swallowed the entire town. East? She was stunned for a moment. Regretless crossing? The beastie nodded. Zhu Yao instantly had a bad premonition. Riding on her flying sword, she headed in that direction. After flying for a short while, she felt an immense suction force pulling her entire being forward. Raising her head, she saw a gigantic black hole in the sky. It was more than 10 times bigger than the regretless crossing she saw back then. That hole spanned across the sky, and it was still expanding. The surrounding trees were uprooted one after another, entering the darkness. Even the soil on the ground was beginning to disappear inch by inch. Sesame was dumbfounded as well, as it looked at the endless darkness. Isn't this severed lands? Zhu Yao continued. Back then, the secret realm Tasioluk, that Sesame resided in had such a place as well. It was the border of that secret realm, and there was only a pitch-black void inside. Even she could only be reborn in there. However, the Horizon Forest. It was not the end of this world. In theory, there shouldn't be any severed lands here. Just like a complete piece of paper, it could have an edge, but this edge could not appear in the middle of the paper. Now the severing lands had appeared here. Moreover, it was beginning to devour and expand in all directions. This could only mean that a crack had appeared in this world, and it was collapsing. Zhu Yao's first reaction. It was because something had happened to Ling Tian. He instructed the beasties not to approach this place. He then turned around and flew towards Spirit Heaven Palace. Back then, when she came here, she had to fly for an entire day. Now, it only took her 15 minutes to reach Spirit Heaven Palace. She was originally thinking of how to beat up Fau, that two-faced person, to vent the resentment in her heart. However, when he saw a similar gigantic black hole appearing in the sky above Spirit Heaven Palace, he was completely stunned. How could there be one here? The entire Spirit Heaven Palace had more or less been devoured by the black hole, and only half a floating mountain was left floating in the air. Moreover, it was continuously sinking into the black hole. Spirit Heaven Palace no longer had a single disciple. She concealed her cultivation level and went to the nearby cultivator town to ask around. Only then did she find out that the black hole had appeared 4 months ago. No one knew what it was. Suddenly, it appeared in the sky. Initially, it was only the size of a well, but it grew larger and larger. 7 days later, it grew to the size of a floating mountain. Spirit Heaven Palace lost quite a number of disciples. Later on, they had no choice but to move the entire sect to Grand Hall sect. I think this Spirit Heaven Palace must have angered the higher realm, which is why such a strange thing would suddenly appear. It might be the doing of a deity from the higher realm. That practitioner said mysteriously. There are no spiritual energy ripples in that hole, only an aura of death. How can there be a practitioner in this world who can summon such a thing? Furthermore, it just had to appear in Spirit Heaven Palace out of all places. It must be related to Spirit Heaven Palace. Zhu Yao frowned. 4 months ago, wasn't that when she was expelled from Ling Tian's body by Fau? It seemed like she had to make a trip to Grand Hall sect. She then rushed to Grand Hall sect, only to realize that she was not the only one here. Disciples from various sects and clans had gathered around Grand Hall sect, and every single one of them had furious expressions. They held weapons in their hands, looking as though they were looking for a group fight. Grand Hall sect's Great Mountain Barrier Formation was activated, blocking the various sects outside the mountain. Zhu Yao took a closer look. The one leading them was the number 1 deity sect, Ripple sect. The female lead Fan Jishan and Sovereign Pai sure stood at the very front, and there were 7 to 8 extraordinary-looking men in their surroundings. Was this the female lead's harem exhibition? It seemed like the death of that Cheng Yufeng did not affect the female lead in the slightest. Sect Master FAU, please hand over that disaster. A nascent soul sovereign loudly shouted towards the Great Mountain Barrier Formation. As long as you hand over the culprit, we will let the people of Grand Hall sect go. Otherwise, for the sake of the world, we will have no choice but to go to war. What was going on? The various sects and clans were actually here to suppress Grand Hall sect? And it seemed like Ripple sect was the one leading it. Earlier, the various sects were trying their best to avoid them. In just a few short months, why did the situation change again? As long as you hand over that witch, Ling Tian, and quell the anger of the deities of the higher realm, I guarantee that the various sects and clans will not pursue today's matter. That nascent soul practitioner continued to transmit his voice loudly. It's precisely because she impersonated the sect master of Spirit Heaven Palace that she attracted such a calamity. She caused the common people to suffer. We as practitioners will naturally enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. Since when did Ling Tian turn into a witch? The more Zhu Yao heard, the more confused she became. Don't tell me that the plot has already unfolded after a single day of not coming online. It seemed like she still had to meet Ling Tian and FAU in order to understand the situation. After pondering for a moment, she intentionally took a detour to the back of Grand Hall sect. Though she had concealed her figure, forget about a demigod. Even an earth deity would not be able to see through her. However, the female lead was able to see luck, so it was better to be a little safer. Though the Great Mountain Barrier Formation of Grand Hall sect was unable to stop her, she did not immediately break it. Instead, she found a formation core, and after making slight adjustments she easily entered. With a sweep of her divine sense, everything in the entire Grand Hall appeared in her mind. Ling Tian was in a room in the backyard of the main mountain. Her figure flashed, and in an instant, she had already arrived in the room. However, Ling Tian, who was on the bed, was lying on the bed with her eyes tightly shut. She did not intentionally conceal her figure. FAU, who was sitting by the bed, was startled, and he immediately summoned his divine sword. He looked at her with a vigilant expression. Who are you? Zhu Yao swept a glance at him, only to see that he no longer had that high-spirited and disdainful expression he had when they first met. As though he had not taken care of himself for a long time. His hair was disheveled, and his face was filled with fatigue. Even the spiritual energy in his body was faintly showing signs of dissipating, and he was unbelievably weak. Even his realm had fallen to the Azoth core stage. She knew that he wasn't doing well. She was at ease. Zhu Yao felt the anger she had been holding in for several months. She slightly relaxed a little. She turned to look at Ling Tian on the bed. What happened to her? FAU was startled, and he suddenly widened his eyes. He recognized her. It's you. She immediately rolled her eyes at him. What else could I do? You. How did you? He had a look of disbelief. Then what's your current body? Of course it's my own. But why did you? He had a confused look. Suddenly he thought of something, and said furiously while raising his sword. Just what did you do to Ling Tian? Why hasn't she woken up yet? What did I do? Zhu Yao coldly laughed. What else can I do? Back then, weren't you the one who forced my soul out? Now that there's a problem, you're blaming me? Panic flashed across his face. I just didn't want her to be controlled by you. She's Ling Tian now that you're out. Why is she unconscious instead? It's you. You must have done something. Zhu Yao did not want to show mercy to a retard like him. She immediately released her might towards him. And FAU was instantly suppressed onto the ground. He puked out a large mouthful of blood. Get this straight. Zhu Yao took a step forward, grabbed onto his collar, and lifted him up. I told you right from the start that I'm here to help her. And Ling Tian has also told you that I'm here to help her. You were the one who chased me out on your own. Her current state is all thanks to you. No, it's not like that. He desperately shook his head. I just wanted to save her. I just didn't want anything to happen to her. I didn't. Zhu Yao coldly laughed. Save? At the very most, you're just a murderer in the guise of a good person. She immediately threw him aside and walked towards Ling Tian, who was lying on the bed. When she took a closer look, she could not help but take in a deep breath. Though Ling Tian girlie was still breathing faintly, her entire being was floating with a dense aura of death, as though she could die at any moment. Zhu Yao clenched her fists and then pulled Fau back. What happened? Logically speaking, this shouldn't have happened. Though she was possessing Ling Tian's body, her body was still extremely healthy. It was basically impossible for her to suddenly show signs of imminent death. Fau's entire being was a little shaky, as though he had sunk into something terrifying. His face was deathly pale without the slightest hint of blood. Hearing her question, he simply shook his head. I don't know. Ever since we returned from Horizon Forest, she hasn't woken up at all. No matter what methods I used, she still hasn't woken up. His entire being began to tremble, and his face was filled with deep despair. Zhu Yao frowned. She reached out her hand to check Ling Tian girlie's pulse, and even intentionally sent a strand of her divine sense in. The result surprised even her. Ling Tian girlie's body was actually completely fine. No matter if it was her dantian or her meridians, there wasn't the slightest bit of damage. The spiritual energy was circulating normally as well. It was as though the aura of death on her body had appeared out of nowhere. You can save her, can't you? Fau suddenly raised his head, as though he had finally managed to grab onto a piece of driftwood in the middle of the ocean. He stared straight at her and said, with your current cultivation level, you can still save her? I beg you, please save her, alright? In the past, it was all my fault, and it has nothing to do with Ling Tian. You can do whatever you want to me. Even if my soul disperses, I'm willing. Save her. I beg you, please save her, alright? Zhu Yao frowned. If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have done it in the first place. You don't believe me? Fau was stunned for a moment, and the panic on his face grew even stronger. Then cast the life-death curse on me, or the heart-questioning curse. This way, I won't be able to escape. As long as you save her, I can do anything you want me to. I can cast it right now. As he said that, he flipped his palm, and an imprint of the life-death curse appeared in his palm. Without even looking at it, he pressed it towards the center of his forehead. Zhu Yao could not bear to watch any longer. With a wave of her hand, she interrupted his art, and conveniently pushed him onto the ground as well. There's no need. She turned to look at him and solemnly said, because I have never thought of forgiving you. His entire being instantly turned ashen. Fau, you only know that Ling Tian is important to you. However, when you used me and schemed against me, have you ever thought that other people have important people as well? Zhu Yao solemnly said, I can understand why you expelled me from Ling Tian's body. After all, it doesn't belong to me in the first place. I will leave sooner or later. Even if I was expelled in advance, I can only blame myself for being stupid. I actually did not see through you. She gave a self-deprecating laugh. Changing the topic, she coldly said, however, I can't forgive you for acting against Sesame. If you don't want to repair its inner core, you can just say so. However, you just had to throw stones at it when it's down, and even set up layers of formations on its inner core, causing us to believe that it had fully recovered. If I had not been overly suspicious and checked its injuries, it might have lost all hope of its inner core being repaired because of these formations, and it might have even died. You only know that Ling Tian is important to you, but have you ever thought that Sesame is just as important to me as well? His face was filled with despair. Zhu Yao took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in the depths of her heart, and continued, as for Ling Tian, I will do my best. He suddenly raised his head. Zhu Yao said, however, this is not because of your pleas. Ling Tian is Ling Tian, and you are you. I saved her because she's different from you. She has never betrayed me. I will not implicate her in your mistakes either. Similarly, I will not forgive you because of her." After saying that, she did not care about his expression. She lifted Ling Tian girly up from the bed and sat cross-legged behind her. After instructing Sesame to stand guard at the side, she took a deep breath, released all of her divine sense, and sent it into Ling Tian's body. Ling Tian girly had yet to wake up, and the aura of death was spreading. Since there was nothing wrong with her body, then the problem could only be with her soul. Actually, after she possessed Ling Tian's body and helped her take back the position of sect master, Ling Tian girly rarely spoke to her. She did not realize it in the past, but now that she thought about it, most likely, a problem had already occurred back then. That was why Ling Tian girly did not have any reaction when she was chased out of her body. The moment Zhu Yao's divine sense entered her body, she did not encounter any resistance at all. Not even her body's instincts could block it. She felt that the situation was far from good, and thus, she immediately searched for her Dantian. The moment she entered, she felt the scene in front of her eyes change, and a celestial mountain paradise appeared. There were floating mountains high up in the sky, and exquisite and majestic pavilions. It was actually Spirit Heaven Palace. Suddenly, two small figures flew over on their swords. They were a boy and a girl. Both of them looked to be around 12 to 13 years old. The girl flew at the front with a joyful smile, and her bell-like laughter resounded throughout the entire journey. The man followed behind with a heavy heart, shouting out worriedly as he chased after them. "Tian Tian, you've just learned how to fly on a sword, don't fly so fast." Zhu Yao was startled for a moment. Were these Ling Tian and Fau when they were young? "You're here?" Suddenly, a light call sounded from behind her. Turning around, she saw Ling Tian girly who was smiling with a gentle expression. She could not help but look back and forth between the little girl who was playing around and Ling Tian in front of her. Chapter 329. Everything happened too quickly, not even a few minutes had passed. When they regained their senses, the only thing left in the sky was the falling golden light. Disappeared. The people of the various sects present were all dumbfounded. The scene earlier was simply too shocking, and even they were unable to deduce what was going on. "It's Ling Tian. Ling Tian is indeed a demoness. That black hole disappeared together with her. That's right. That must be the case. The deities of the higher realm only calmed down after she disappeared. That light earlier, it must have been a powerful mystic art. I told you, only Reverend Fan is the true Spirit Heaven Palace Master, the one who inherits the mandate of the heavens. That demoness Ling Tian deserves to die." The crowd spoke one after another, and the more they spoke, the more they felt that their guesses were correct. They actually described the phenomenon earlier as Ling Tian's retribution, and there were even people advising Fan Jishan to take over the position of sect master as soon as possible. "The heavens have eyes. Demoness Ling Tian deserves to die." "Shut up." The more Zhu Yao heard, the angrier she became. Carrying godly energy, she sent out a voice transmission. In an instant, the crowd of practitioners in the sky could not withstand this pressure. Those with high cultivation puked out blood, while those with low cultivation fell straight down from the sky. Zhu Yao walked from the courtyard to the center of the plaza in front of the great hall. Gold deity divine energy revolved around her body. Looking at the people in the sky who were still acting righteously just a moment ago, she could not help but sneer. She felt indignant for Ling Tian. She had sacrificed her life to save this group of people. "I've seen fools before, but I've never seen anyone as stupid as you lot. Hopelessly stupid. You. Who are you?" The cultivators who were still in the air all had a look of terror on their faces. They had never seen such a terrifying pressure before. Even soul formation cultivators couldn't resist it. When did such a powerful cultivator appear in the cultivation world? "Who am I?" Zhu Yao sneered. She could not suppress the anger in the depths of her heart no matter how hard she tried. Turning around, she swept a glance at the group of sanctimonious people in the sky. "Didn't you all say that was the wrath of the deities of the higher realm?" Then let me show you what the wrath of the deities of the higher realm looks like. The moment her voice fell, with a thought, heaven-shaking tribulation lightning bolts descended one after another. It looked like a spider web. Lightning covered the entire land, and every single one of them seemed to contain the power to destroy the heavens. The mountains shook and the earth quaked. The sun and moon lost their light. That lightning was simply too frightening. Even the tribulation lightning of a soul formation cultivator couldn't compare to a tenth of that lightning's power. Even though none of the tribulation lightning struck them, even Pai Shi, who was at the soul formation stage, couldn't help but feel his hands tremble. Just one bolt of lightning here was enough to turn anyone here into ashes. No one would doubt that. This kind of power was not something that a mortal world cultivator could achieve. Instantly, everyone had the same answer. That person was an immortal. No one should speak. No one dared to retort. They could only stand rooted to the ground, not even daring to breathe too loudly. He was afraid that the immortal would misdirect the lightning in a fit of rage. Zhu Yao chopped for exactly 15 minutes. Only then did he suppress the urge in his heart to rush up and kill him. And he barely managed to restrain the tribulation lightning that was like an inescapable net. Whereas the surroundings of Grand Hall sect had long since changed beyond recognition, the entire place instantly fell into a strange silence. Unexpectedly, the first to move was Bai Li, who had been standing next to Fan Jishan the entire time. He seemed to be a little lost as he stared blankly at Zhu Yao on the ground. He muttered, "My lord." In an instant, he felt as though all the blood in his body was clamoring, and he could not help but want to go over. Fan Jishan instinctively wanted to pull him. Bai Li. However, he did not hear her and completely ignored her. He immediately flew down. His face carried a little nervousness and panic, but more than that, he seemed to have a strange and irresistible conviction. He could not help but kneel toward Zhu Yao. "Lord." Zhu Yao simply glanced at him coldly. She did not have much of a good impression of this beast. The reason why he was kneeling in front of her was because her original body was a heart-protecting dragon scale, adding the influence of the world-favorable impression. Under the suppression of her bloodline, it made him think that she was a dragon. "Bai Li, there will naturally be someone who will settle the matter of you betraying the clan." Bai Li did not resist. He simply knelt on the ground even more respectfully. His body, however, was slightly trembling because of her words. "Bai Li," Fan Jishan worriedly shouted out. However, the other party did not react at all. Her expression instantly paled. Looking at Zhu Yao, who had a cold expression, she suddenly had a bad premonition. Among the crowd who were stunned earlier, someone finally regained his senses and spoke up a little timidly. Hi deity, you've misunderstood. We're not here to find trouble with Grand Hall sect." When this person saw that she had appeared in Grand Hall sect, he naturally thought that she was here to support Grand Hall sect. Who in the cultivation world could afford to offend a deity? He had no choice but to bite the bullet and explain. Today's matter is merely because someone impersonated the sect master of Spirit Heaven Palace. That's why we're here to capture the culprit. Impersonated? Zhu Yao coldly laughed. She looked at Fan Jishan and said, "You're saying that the real sect master of Spirit Heaven Palace is her?" "That's right." That person hurriedly nodded. "Open your dog eyes wide and look carefully." Zhu Yao immediately threw a spirit stone into the sky. After taking a closer look, it was just a normal sound recording stone, and it was the size of a palm. She cast an art, and in an instant, the sound recording stone emitted a light, reflecting a gigantic projection in the sky. What was being broadcasted was an unbearable scene that caused one's face to turn red and heart to race. Inside, 3 men and 1 woman were currently intertwining with each other. Though there was no sound, the obscene scene still caused everyone to subconsciously turn their heads away. Not to mention, the main characters inside, other than the one who was already dead, there were still 3 other people present. This made everyone feel even more ashamed. The cultivation world naturally had its own ways of dual cultivation, so it did not forbid the desire of the body. However, it had always been 1 man and 1 woman, and this kind of group cultivation was rarely seen in the world. Furthermore, every single one of the people inside were renowned practitioners. This was something that everyone could not help but exclaim in admiration. The crowd could not help but turn their heads to look at the main character, Fan Jishan, and the group of male practitioners behind her. Their eyes gradually carried hints of disdain, as they suddenly understood why FAU was cursing them. Hi deity. What? What do you mean by this? Chao Qi finally could not help but speak up. His face was filled with anger, yet he did not dare to go overboard with his words, in case he offended her openly. The crowd was puzzled as well. If she could not stand Fan Jishan's private character problems, it was fine for her to expose them. However, they were clearly talking about the sect master of Spirit Heaven Palace earlier. In the cultivation world, there were very few people who had messy private lives, especially female practitioners. However, it was not as if there were none in private. After all, the path of cultivation was lonely, and there would always be people who wanted to find some entertainment. Just based on this point alone, it was not enough to prove that the other party was not the sect master of Spirit Heaven Palace. Shut up. Zhu Yao glared at him, and once again released her pressure, freezing the crowd in place. Continue watching. Or maybe it was because her voice was too cold. The crowd could not help but once again focus their gazes on the projection. In the beginning, everyone was still evasive. After all, it was not a beautiful scene, but as they continued watching, they realized something was amiss. What's that light behind their backs? Why is there such a strange light? All of them have it. The other three only have a single color. Why is Reverend Fan so strange? What's the thread connecting them in the middle? That thread is coming from Reverend Fan's body. She's absorbing the light of others. Just what kind of mystic art is this? Zhu Yao swept a glance at the shocked practitioners and let out a cold laugh. For the sake of a heretic practitioner who absorbs the luck of others to cultivate, all of you have come so aggressively to seek justice, and even sacrificed your own life. The savior who saved this world at the edge of collapse has actually become the demoness you speak of. To be unable to distinguish right from wrong, and distort black from white, do you think you're worthy of becoming deities? Everyone's eyes were wide open, absorbing luck. Those lights earlier were actually luck. There were actually heretic practitioners who absorbed the luck of others in this world. In an instant, everyone's faces paled, as they all realized what this meant. Even the female lead's harem had a look of disbelief on their faces. Fan Jishan's face was even more ashen. The biggest secret in her heart had been revealed in front of everyone, and the proof was even placed in the air. For a moment, she simply felt her entire body turning cold. She truly felt that she had lost. Even if she were to luckily escape, she would not be able to escape the pursuit of the various sections. Gritting her teeth, she instantly regained her senses. Before the crowd could even react, she suddenly broke free from Zhu Yao's pressure and flew towards her. With a twist of her hand, a gigantic scythe-like weapon appeared. She swung it towards her, and the three letters bug on it were especially obvious. She no longer had a path of retreat, so she might as well fight with her life on the line. Ever since this deity appeared, she had seen it. She had never seen such a unique form of luck before, and just by looking at it, she could not help but tremble. She did not know why, but she suddenly had a feeling that as long as she could obtain that luck, she would be able to do anything. Zhu Yao basically did not dodge. Instead, with a twist of her hand, a weapon that was exactly the same as hers appeared in her hand, just that there was no bug word on it. With a wave of her hand, the three words in her hand instantly scattered. Fan Jishan was immediately sent flying several dozen meters away, and she continued to puke out blood. However, she still widened her eyes and looked at Zhu Yao with a face of disbelief. This is impossible. You're very surprised that I know it as well, right? Zhu Yao walked over step by step. Ever since she saw Fan Jishan's unique bug-like weapon, she knew that it was formed from a certain part of her body. Luck existed in every person's body like a soul, yet it was the most illusory and illusory. If one wanted to suppress it, then only something of the same level or similar could cut off the luck. She had always been unable to understand what it was, And only when she was driven out of spirit's celestial body by Fau did she recall that it was divine sense. When she was reincarnating countless times in the past, only the things in her divine sense could reincarnate together with her. This was sufficient to prove that divine sense should be an existence that was equivalent to luck. Remember this. Zhu Yao raised the weapon in her hand. If you come out to make a living, you'll have to pay for it sooner or later. She waved her hand and directly swung down according to the location of her spiritual energy in her memory. That weapon did not touch her body in the slightest. Fan Jishan, however, let out a heart-wrenching scream. No, her face was deathly pale. As she turned around in a fluster, as though she wanted to pick something up from the ground. She grabbed at it a few times, and as though the thing she picked up would disappear, she continued to grab onto it tightly. Her eyes were already filled with complete madness. No, 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 no. My luck, it's all mine. Mine. Zhu Yao put down the condensed divine sense in her hand and placed it back into her body. He formed a seal with one hand and struck it into the female lead's body, instantly shattering her dantian and crippling all of her cultivation. He also left a seal in her body so that she could no longer steal other people's karmic luck. The spiritual energy in Fan Jishan's body instantly scattered, yet, as though she could not feel the injuries on her body at all, as though she had already fallen into a demon's trap, she laid on the ground, desperately trying to pick up the luck on the ground. Zhu Yao's eyes sank, and only then did the anger in the depths of her heart slowly dissipate. Raising her head, she glanced at the sky. Not a single person dared to speak up for Fan Jishan, including the men in her harem. They either avoided her gaze, or revealed a little blank, as though they did not know why they had such deep feelings for her in the past. Once the female lead's luck was severed, the feeling of them being stolen naturally disappeared. I won't kill you. Zhu Yao lowered her head to look at Fan Jishan on the ground. The hands of the female lead, who still had a crazed look on her face earlier, paused for a moment, before she continued to pick up the luck on the ground. She coldly laughed. I won't kill you because I'm different from you. And more importantly, everything you're suffering right now isn't enough to make up for the mistakes you've made in the past. With a wave of her hand, she sent Fan Jishan flying. Suddenly, a black figure flashed out from behind her, catching the female lead who was sent flying. With a single hand, he held onto her hair. Fau. When did he come out? She actually did not sense it in the slightest. Of course I can't kill her. He suddenly smiled with a strange expression. Slowly lifting the female lead up, he looked straight into her eyes, and his voice was bone-piercingly cold. If you were to die, who should I look for to settle this debt with? His laughter grew louder, yet his eyes began to turn red bit by bit, and black marks began to crawl up his face. Devil imprint. Fau. Zhu Yao's heart sank. He was about to turn into a devil. Don't act recklessly. The reason why Ling Tian doesn't want you to follow her is because he wants you to live well. Of course I will live well. The black marks on his face grew thicker, and even his entire body began to emit devilish energy. His voice seemed to carry the coldest of winds. I will live to avenge her. I will avenge the people who harmed her, and the heaven and earth that took her life. Zhu Yao had no choice but to form hand seals with her hands. She wanted to stop him from turning into a devil, but she was still a step too late. The devilish energy on his body instantly surged, and it spread in all directions. The heaven and earth suddenly shook, and the plants in the surroundings withered. Even the spiritual energy in the entire Grand Hall sect had dissipated. In an instant, the sky was filled with devilish energy and a violent gale wreaked havoc. She frowned. With a twist of her hand, she changed to a sealing incantation, circulating the godly energy in her body. A gigantic golden formation appeared in the sky, just as she was about to descend and seal Fau, who had already turned into a devil. A black light flashed, and all of the devilish energy suddenly disappeared. Even Fau and Fan Jishan's figures had disappeared without a trace. Chapter 330. Zhu Yao was unable to react for a moment. She had finally resolved a bug. Yet another one was born? Can't you let me catch a breather? Before she could even figure out how to resolve this series of changes, a ray of light shone down. It immediately broke through the layers of dark clouds, instantly illuminating this dark world. The light of guidance. Now, her figure lightened, and her entire being flew up into the sky. She only had the time to call out to Sesame, asking it to return to her divine sense. In the next moment, she had directly ascended to the border. However, the moment she passed through it, the familiar darkness once again appeared, and she returned to that space. The hell? She couldn't become a deity through the normal procedures, right? A QQ chat window popped out as usual, and the screen was filled with fireworks, exploding into a chrysanthemum shape. Realm Spirit. Welcome back, young maiden. Congratulations on fixing yet another outstanding bug. I'm about to become your brain-dead fan. Zhu Yao glared at him. Scram. Realm Spirit. Oh, young maiden, you're so cold, so heartless, so unreasonable. Enough with the nonsense. Just what happened this time? It started so mysteriously, and it ended even more mysteriously? Just what happened to FAU and Ling Tian? Forget about Ling Tian, FAU actually became a devil. Can a mortal become a devil? Realm Spirit. Young maiden, I'm innocent. That world was already close to complete collapse in the first place, so there were many uncertainties. You didn't accurately land on an avatar, so it's still fated. I can't control it either. Doubtful face. Realm Spirit. It's true. Young maiden, this is also the reason why I'm in such a hurry to have you go. Then Ling Tian. Zhu Yao took a deep breath. She still felt a little stifled. Does she really have to die? Realm Spirit. Ling Tian is that world's patch in the first place. Sooner or later, she will have to complete that world. This is also the reason why her aptitude became worse after reincarnating. Logically speaking, with her accidental intelligence, she shouldn't have developed the 7 emotions. However, because she accidentally developed these emotions in her past life, she even developed desires because of it. This led to her calamity in this life. She died prematurely, and she no longer had the ability to reincarnate. You're saying that she wasn't human in the first place? She wasn't human in the first place? Zhu Yao frowned. Realm Spirit. Originally not. But it had been like this since the last time. If that was the case, he might as well not have fallen for her in the first place. At least in the end, Realm Spirit. Yao Yao. Did her death break your heart? It's not to the extent of being heartbroken. You must be sad and sympathetic. Zhu Yao took a deep breath. I can't deny that Ling Tian is a qualified savior. She saved the entire world, and even sacrificed her most cherished feelings. I feel sorry for her. I'm sorry for her death too. This is human nature, but not to the point of heartbreak. Realm Spirit. Then, but she might be a good hero. She's a good role model, and she can even be considered as a good lover. However, I'm unable to treat her as a friend like Ying Luo. She shook her head. From the very beginning, she has never been honest with me. Maybe she has all kinds of reasons, but it doesn't change the fact that she lied to me. Realm Spirit. Feelings are mutual. Maybe we can spend more time together. She will tell me the truth, and I will most likely be as furious as FAU. She let out a long sigh. Perhaps it was because Ling Tian had forcefully kept her in her body, but there had always been a knot in her heart. However, when a person died, there was no need for her to be conflicted. Hence, although she sympathized with her predicament, she was not as sad as she was when she saw Ying Luo's death. Oh right, what happened to FAU? Zhu Yao suddenly recalled. He clearly became a devil. Can a mortal become a devil as well? Realm Spirit. Young maiden, everything has a devil's nature. The only difference is whether you let it be. The hell? Doesn't that mean there are endless bugs to fix? Zhu Yao really wanted to curse out. Most of the bugs she fixed were related to the devil race, you know? Wait a minute. FAU clearly became a devil. Yet you pulled me back. Could it be that he's not a bug? Realm Spirit. Congratulations, young maiden. Your intelligence is online. Speak normally. Realm Spirit. Actually, the reason why those ancient devils you dealt with in the past were bugs was because they had transcended beyond the 3 realms in the first place. However, FAU was different. He was a person of the three realms in the first place, and even if he became a devil, he was still in the three realms. So the devil race was actually divided into ancient devils and native devils? Was this racial discrimination? But after thinking about it carefully, compared to the devils she had seen in the past, although Fau had devilish energy as well, he seemed to be much weaker. Could it be that this was the reason why he did not fight her head-on? Forget it. Since Realm Spirit said he wasn't a bug, then why should she worry about it? Then what about Fan Jishan? Zhu Yao continued to ask. She had a feeling that she wasn't simple. She can't simply be an ordinary person who had awakened a hidden talent, right? Realm Spirit, young maiden, you're so smart. Actually, she was an accident as well. What do you mean? Realm Spirit. She was originally a reincarnation of an incomplete soul that had been corroded by resentment. Initially, it would take several lifetimes before her soul could be restored to a complete state. However, the resentment that had been eliminated earlier had unexpectedly returned to the world and attached itself onto her body, causing a certain amount of time turbulence. She had memories that she shouldn't have, and a certain degree of mutation had occurred. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Can you speak Chinese? The hell, she basically couldn't understand it at all. Hey, Realm Spirit. Oh, to put it simply, she thought that she had been reborn. The hell? So she was reborn again. It was no wonder her cultivation rose so quickly. That mutation should be because she could see luck, right? Zhu Yao raised her head and looked at Realm Spirit's chat window. She did not know why, but a strange feeling rose in the depths of her heart. Luck, soul, resentment. To practitioners and even deities, these were all illusory and faintly discernible things. However, Realm Spirit could casually speak of them. Furthermore, no matter if it was Ling Tian or the River of Forgetfulness, these were all unimaginable existences in themselves. Yet, all of them had extraordinary trust in him. No, that's not right. Rather than saying they trusted him, it was more like they were following his orders. Zhu Yao was startled. She took in a deep breath, and suddenly, an inconceivable thought surfaced in the depths of her heart. Realm Spirit. Just who are you? The screen flashed for a long time before the next line of words appeared. Realm Spirit. You're so annoying. Of course I'm your friend. By the way, since you worked overtime this time, you will be rewarded with a holiday. Does the girl want to activate it now? Holiday. Zhu Yao's eyes shone. For real? Don't you need to patch the bug? Realm Spirit, sob sob sob. Young girl, how can you doubt my sincerity? My sincerity. My sincerity. My sincerity. You're blaming me? She rolled her eyes at him. When have you ever been reliable? Realm Spirit, it's real this time. I'm opening it now. Suddenly, the familiar loading bar appeared in front of his eyes. It was running at lightning speed. Zhu Yao's figure flashed, and in an instant, she disappeared from the dusky space. After a long time, lines of red text popped up. Detected target awakening warning. Do you want to open it automatically? Selected. Block awakening message. The awakening stopped. The dialog box flashed, and another line of words appeared. Realm Spirit. It's not time yet. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.